By the way,
we're live on my end. Just
okay.
FYI.
All right, thank you. Stand by.
Mm-hmm. Copy my mix.
You need something?
Oh, no, just check to make sure they do what they do.
Okay. Otis, you mean?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I know. I let him in.
Okay.
Yeah, go on. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, Miss Renita and everybody else on the live stream. How are you guys doing today? Happy Monday. I'm going to go ahead and grab the links and send those out to everybody. And what's up? What's up? Oh, yeah. There we go. Let me see the link.
Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Aaron's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
K-Man's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Brought to you by J. Michael Fashion for everyone. Let's get some Monday headlines. Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Good morning, Blake. How you doing? I missed you.
We are good. Missed you as well.
Yes.
What's up?
So let's dive right in. Couple things. Obviously, people might have noticed some delays over the weekend if you were traveling this weekend. So we're pleased to say that there were a few delays due to a part that was coming from Europe for one of the jets. It has now arrived in the Cayman Islands. So after today, there will be no further delays, but the Miami flight came in close to 1:00 last night. So if you were traveling on that, obviously
Just for Cayman Airways?
Yep, Cayman Airways out of Miami. It affected the Miami route on Saturday as well. So that was delayed over 3 hours. And so, yeah, they're back to their regular schedule now. So in case people wondering what was going on, that was the cause of that situation.
And we flew on Cayman Airways on Saturday from Tampa, and we were early, actually. It was a great flight.
Yeah.
So much so that
it didn't impact everyone, which is good.
Yeah. We even landed a bit early, right like 10 minutes before the BA got in. So it's just really nice to just skip right through the immigration before the big plane unloaded. It was nice.
Oh, that's always nice. I always like when that happens. Speaking of travel, if you have the red British passport, which I have to raise my hand, I have one of those. There's a couple things going on for the Burgundy passport that you will want to know. So those were issued before the UK actually left the EU. And some of them might be coming up for expiration depending on when they were issued. So just double check it. Of course, all passports should be valid for a 6-month period if you're intending to travel. I'm hearing of some people who are running into issues with that. Some countries have a 3-month validity rule. So just make sure that you check for wherever it is that you're traveling. And the people should also be reminded that those passports are only valid for 10 years from the issue date of the passport. And if they were issued prior to the UK leaving the European Union, with additional months added on, those extra months are no longer valid. So that's kind of important to know. So just make sure, check all your documents. If you're traveling, you know exactly what is going on so that you're in the know. A couple court things
really
happened.
On the passport thing. Cayman doesn't, really quick on the passport thing, because we're renewing one of ours. A U.S. passport, if you're renewing, they haven't named a consulate yet. So the U.S. consulate won't be back here in Cayman until September. So you have to set up an appointment. Now, the thing with your passport is you can still travel on your current passport until you get a new one. Also, Cayman doesn't have the 6-month policy here. So you can arrive here in Cayman even up to when your passport, the day it expires. So that's not an issue if you're a U.S. passport holder. FYI.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's stick to passports before we wrap this segment up. If you're traveling to Cuba, it makes you ineligible for the ESTA, the U.S. visa waiver. So make sure, I never actually knew this. This was kind of something new for me.
That is new.
People looking to travel to the United States on what we call the ESTA, which is the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, are being advised to avoid traveling to Cuba because, it's apparently making you ineligible since January of 2021 for an ESTA. So travelers are not being barred from entering the U.S., but they'll need to apply for a non-immigrant visa at a U.S. embassy or consulate. And of course, we know the ESTA makes it really easy to kind of just come in and out of the U.S. They're issued for a period of like 2 years each. And it just makes your life super, super easy. So yeah, that's interesting because I actually never knew that. And I think that most people, what they do is they travel on their Cayman passport, and then they have a UK passport for the ESTA to go in and out of the US. But you shouldn't, the authorities here have informed me that you should not have them even stamp your Cayman passport.
Right.
If you go to Cuba.
They used to not do that, but I think they do stamp your passports now.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to be real careful on going there, and knowing what you need to do if you're traveling in other places after going to Cuba. So,
yeah. Okay, so those are your headlines this morning.
By the way, do you have global entry? Do you have a U.S. passport?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not, yeah.
But you can, if you have a UK passport, you can get global entry into the United States, which will save you a ton of time, by the way.
Really?
Probably, look into it because my wife has it. She's a British passport holder.
And it takes care of the whole family, or each individual member has to?
Each member has to apply for it, but even Miles, our 4-year-old, has global entry. When you go to immigration, those long lines you see, like in Miami and Tampa or wherever you're going in the States, you can avoid all of that and go straight through. Basically, the short line, you're through immigration in less than 5 minutes.
All right, we got to run.
It's worth it. All right, we'll see you. Style up the summer with the latest.
Good morning.
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's Community Radio.
We are still spilling the tea.
And committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold, hard truth.
Now, from the CMR studio in Grand Cayman.
Live, direct.
It's the cold, hard truth. Now. Join the conversation on 345-936-2626.
That number again is
345-936-2626.
Good morning, Cayman. Happy Monday, July the 24th already. Can you guys believe it? I surely cannot. Hope that you guys are doing well, getting all sorts of messages. Just restarted the landline, the phone line, I should say, 936-2626. Beautiful day here in paradise. We're going to talk about it. So I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day, morning so far, start of a new week. Are we not excited? Yes, we are. We got lots to do. Hello, everybody. Ooh, honey child, the messages are coming in strong this morning. OMG. What a ting. Lots of you were messaging last week about the housing situation. My understanding is that by next week, the Premier should have some information for us on the National Housing Task Force, which Minister Bryan mentioned on Thursday, and we should have some details about what their recommendations are. So we'll get a feel for what the government has been doing in relation to, how they're going to put maybe some controls in place as it relates to housing, if any at all. It's going to be a very delicate balance without a doubt, because as you might have gleaned from the show on Thursday, there is a balancing act. I was actually away this weekend. I went away on Friday and Saturday. We're going to talk about the situation with Cayman Airways here in a second. But I must say that I had someone call me on Saturday morning. I was like, I'm away. They still didn't care on each other. Like, I got a landlord issue I want to talk to you about. And so they were talking about, an issue with their landlord, and essentially the landlord doing certain things that they were not happy with. Here's my general advice. When you have a breakdown in the relationship where your landlord is starting to encroach on your space, for example, coming into your place when you're not there, there's just certain things that honestly no one should have to tolerate. And if it's happening, I think it's fair to say that the relationship between landlord and tenant has probably broken down to the point where you got to go. Now, the problem is people are having issues with their landlords, and they don't want to leave because they don't have anywhere else to go, or they think they can't find somewhere else. And that's a problem for you all, because your landlord, and this is what it came down to, this person was saying to me, my landlord has given me notice. And I said, well, do you have a contract? You always start with the contract. Do you have a contract? And if the question or the answer to that is yes, then my next question is, what does the contract say? Because most contracts will give you a notice period. Sometimes it's a month. That's probably the vast majority of instances. It's a month where you, can give notice in either direction. Sometimes it's 3 months. So you've got to read your contract. You've got to know what your contract says. So the person said, yeah, I have a 1-year contract and the notice period is a month, but I have a 1-year contract. And I said, that doesn't matter. You can have a 20-year contract. There's always a notice period in your contract. So as long as the person is giving you notice within the notice period, yes, within the 1 month, they give you 1 month's notice, there's nothing that you can do. You can't force a landlord to keep you. Just like a landlord, can't force you to stay. That's just how it is. So as long as they're giving you sufficient notice. And then they said, well, they're not telling me why they're giving me notice. They don't have to tell you why they're giving you notice. They could just not like the color of your eyes, honey child. And let me squat so y'all can actually see me. They cannot like the color of your eyes. It doesn't really matter. Well, unfortunately, we don't have any anti-discrimination legislation in this country, which we should for housing, because in most jurisdictions around the place, it's illegal to discriminate against people based on certain things, color, nationality, those types of things, sexuality, that sort of thing. But in this country, we don't have those protections. And the bottom line is your landlord doesn't have to tell you any reason whatsoever. They can just give you notice. Just like you don't have to tell your landlord either why you want to leave. If you don't choose to tell them, that's completely your business. And there's nothing that stipulates that they have to tell you. I think for this particular person, there was another clause in their lease agreement where if they wanted to evict you within a shorter space of time, that was for more egregious behavior. And they might have been confusing, like, oh, they have to give me a reason for that, but not for the regular notice period. I'm like, yeah, they don't have to give you a reason. Once they've given you notice, they're saying, can I take them to court? Can I fight this? And I said, well, the question in my mind is, what would you be getting out of it if you fought it? The court can't force them to keep you as a tenant. I don't see you getting any rewards, like monetary rewards, in any way, shape, or form, just because somebody has treated you bad in a landlord-tenancy situation. The courts take a really long time just to even get a court date. You file documents, get a court. It drags on, right? Police officers are getting involved and they have no clue about the landlord tenancy legislation. And so they're not really the ones to mediate either. Because sometimes I find that they are misinforming the public about what their position is. Once the relationship is broken down, folks, get to stepping. You know, it's one of the reasons, not one of the reasons, it is the single reason why I became a homeowner way back when, because this situation of rogue landlords and tenants have existed forever, I feel like, probably to varying degrees. But now that we have more people being landlords and tenants, they don't have a clue what they're doing. They just slop a little contract together, renting you a coffin in their living room, and all of a sudden, you know, want to be able to make your life miserable. So, you know, I said to myself back then, I was not going to be at the mercy of any crazy person, drug addict husband who was a landlord trying to steal people's stuff. I'm like, no, 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 no. Let me be beholden to the bank. I mean, y'all can think whatever you want about these banks, but they're not rogue like these landlords. Okay. There's a different level of insanity when you're dealing with some of these landlords. And I refused to subject myself to that. So I said, I can only afford a little apartment back in the day. In fact, the owner of the apartment was asking for more than the bank was willing to finance. So we did a side agreement where I was like, okay, let's do this side agreement. I pay you, you know, so much extra per month for this additional amount. And that's what I did to be able to get out of the landlord tenancy market. And you just got to be on your hustle factor, honey child. Do whatever you got to do to make sure you can afford to pay the loan payment to the bank, you know, because these renters, and I know that, you know, that's a different situation for Caymanians versus the expats. But, you know, if you're here on a work permit, obviously home ownership is not even in the cards for you. And that's really quite unfortunate, because those are the people who tend to be really, really taken advantage of. And it's just such an unfortunate situation. So we'll see what this housing task force has come up with. I think it'll be certainly interesting. And, you know, we'll kind of take it from there. But let me just see. You know, the gentleman who called in on Thursday's show, who was sharing how some of his own experiences, you know, really, really interesting that he touched such a nerve that so many of you could relate to. Someone actually messaged me, and I want to clarify this because I think it's worth clarification. Someone actually messaged and said, oh, you know, this guy, I'm going to tell you exactly what he said, what the person said. Hold on. So they sent me a message essentially saying that this guy, this is what they said. Lord of mercy, a whole poppy show. You give me the mail caller with the picture of the bathroom. Slumlord caller is also. Oh, you know what? I completely misread what that person said until just now. You know how when you're reading something again for the millionth time, it actually now makes sense? Hold on. Let me check something. Okay. My bad. Let me verify something. All right, honey child. Hold on one second now. Y'all know we gonna be getting these things straight. All right, let me verify this. Yeah, because I was a little bit confused actually by this message, because I was thinking that they got something wrong, but now I see what they're saying. They're talking about the landlord, not the tenant. And I thought they were talking about the tenant. Okay. Give me a second to verify something. Okay. All right, let me verify. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Hmm. Mhm. All right, we'll look into that because now I understand what's going on. All right, we'll circle back to that particular comment here in a second. Okay, but yeah, these things are very, very difficult. I'm curious to see what the Housing Task Force Committee has come up with as a solution. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter in the community. Like I said, that gentleman hit a nerve because so many people can relate, and I think it's kind of sad when you think about it that so many people have had bad experiences and can all relate to slumlords harassing. I mean, I hear about people going into people's rooms when they're not there. Like the lady who called me on Saturday, she actually had a camera inside her place. The landlord went in there and unplugged the camera as they're like walking around your house. I'm like, oh, that gives me all kind of bejeebers. Why would you be going in somebody's house and unplugging their camera? What are you doing up in there? Right? That tenant has the right to some degree of privacy. They're renting that space, no matter what it is. And you know what is so interesting? In this particular instance, it's like it's like inside of a house that she's renting. So she's like, oh, can the landlord then take down the partitions that separate me from everybody else during this notice period? And I said, absolutely not. Listen, she's giving you notice, so you got to get out. The other thing that you should know about notice, which is really, really important, is once someone has given you notice, some people are like, oh, well, what if I can't find a place in that amount of time? That's not the landlord's issue. Unfortunately for you, you better, again, get to step in pretty quickly and try to find a new place because you get 30 days. That's not the landlord's problem, what you can do in 30 days. This is why when you sign, because people are having buyer's regret, right? They sign a contract and then afterwards they're like, oh, I don't like this clause. I don't like this clause. I said, here's contract 101. You cannot sign a contract and then after you sign the contract, after the fact, say that there's certain elements of it that you do not agree with or you don't like. You should have never signed the contract to begin with. And unless it's something that's illegal or unlawful, you're not going to have a way out of that situation. So it's really, really imperative, folks, that you are cognizant of what it is that you are doing when you sign these contracts. Do not sign a contract without reading it. Sorry. Do not sign a contract without reading it and make sure that you are truly in agreement with the clauses. Because again, this was like, well, I don't like this clause. And I said, well, that's too bad. You've already signed the contract and you've agreed to allow the landlord to do this, this, and this. You can't then change the terms of agreement unilaterally or one directional after you've already signed the contract. And that goes, in both directions, to be quite frank and honest. So read your contracts, make sure you understand what they say, and you know that once you sign on the dotted line, you're in agreement. Now, in this market, if you know that it takes people an average of a month and a half to find a place, you should be asking when your landlord presents you with a contract to have that clause amended. Now, of course, the landlord has to agree to it, and the landlord can always say no. It is a renter's, not a renter's market. It is a landlord's market, a rentee's market, as the case may be. So what that means is that really and truly, they are the ones who are in a position of power. Like it or not, because they can find a tenant, boom, in 2-2s because of the shortages in the rental market. And I'm really, really curious to see how the beautification committee has taken that into consideration, because that makes for a very uneven relationship between landlord and tenant. Landlords have 80% of the power. Tenants really don't even have 20%, but let's give them 20%. And that's the reality of the situation, because your landlord kicks you out. They can have 5 tenants lined up in no time at all. Good morning to Ms. Vernita. Good morning to Diamond Princess. Luis is here. Stephen joining us from the UK. Miss Sonia, how are you? I think you're in the UK vacationing as well. Irvelyn is here. Amelia says, good morning, Sandy, and all 3 islands. Another beautiful week ahead. Let's make it productive. Yes, honey child. Ooh, Evelyn says it is hot. Oh, Lord Jesus. Last week, we were talking about the heat. And let me tell you, this is the hottest month on record for the Cayman Islands. Y'all make that sink in. And I feel sorry for y'all now with that CUC bill. Because trust me, I stayed home the vast majority of yesterday. I went out a little bit in the morning to run a few errands. I grabbed some breakfast, and then I came back home. I was so tired from my running up and down in the streets of Miami, I got to be honest, that I needed to take a nap. And I literally napped for like 4 hours in the afternoon, which is probably not good, but child, I needed it. My brain was like, okay, get up. We got work to do in the computer. We got stuff to do. And my body was like, no, I'm in control here and you are not moving. You know, when you get to that point where you're so tired, the brain is so funny though, because the brain is still like, oh, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. Let's do that. And the body is like, pump the brakes. I'm in control and you're not going anywhere. I could not physically get up. Like I could not move. A lot of times when that happens to me, it means that I'm actually getting sick. Like something is coming, a cold, COVID or something. Oh, knock on wood, honey. Yeah. Something's coming down the pipeline that is going to really wipe me out. And my body is like trying to already fight it before it starts to present symptoms. So I'm hoping that this week that I will have enough common sense to actually get sufficient rest, because I know my body needs it. Like I'm a little bit tired this morning too, right? So yes, you know, those early morning flights, you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:45, 4:30. And then, you know, you're walking up and down all over the malls. Chill. Anyway, I'm going to try to go to bed a little bit earlier this week for sure. So yeah, I was pooped. And Evelyn, that AC had to be on, honey child. I'm like, listen, I'm going to just pay CUC. I am not complaining. I don't care. I'll be dancing, twerking on a pole somewhere in order to pay my CUC bill. That's fine. But I'm not suffering in none of this heat. This heat is madness. People are literally passing out and dying all over the place because of the heat. It's not going to be me. I might die for some other reason, but it's not going to be for the heat. I can tell you that much. So, no, honey child, I'm staying inside and, you know, yeah. Now, did y'all see this story the other day? I don't know if y'all saw this. This was actually really, really crazy. I'm going to play part of this video for you guys. Delta Airline is being investigated by the, I guess it's the FAA. Hold on. Let me get y'all this. Department of Transportation. That's what they're called. So the Department of Transportation is investigating a lengthy Delta airline delay where passengers sat on the plane for nearly 90 minutes on last Monday in triple-digit temperatures. What? Triple? Let me say it again for those of you in the back of the classroom. Leroy, you back there this morning? You might have not heard what I said. Triple-digit temperatures. This is crazy. People passed out on the flight. Oh my God, I would have sued Delta in tutus had I passed out on that flight. Can you imagine? Check this out, folks. This is just crazy. I don't know what Delta thinking, but look at this.
Is seeing triple digits, as you can see here with our XRAD radar. Well, earlier today, we brought you this update of a flight nightmare. Passengers stuck on a plane in 111-degree heat in Las Vegas. It's a story that's now capturing national attention. And one of those passengers happened just to be a Fox News field producer. Krista Garvin is joining us now on the phone to tell us about her experience, what happened on board that Delta flight. Krista, can you hear me? How long were you stuck on the tarmac?
Yes, I can hear you. We were on the tarmac for a total of 2.5 hours. Ended up on the plane for a total of 4 hours.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like, how uncomfortable it was, and what you were just noticing with the passengers around you.
Yeah, I would say when we first started taxiing out, we realized that there was a long wait, a lot of planes in front of us. We had to make the stop to wait in line. Once the plane stops moving, the air turns off. So that's when you started noticing the closer you got to stopping, the air was slowing down. All we really had was the overhead air, and it was very light. They told us all to open our air vents, to close our windows, and to just stay seated, and it wouldn't be too long. After the first, hour, you really started to feel it. It was hot. It was really bad. There was a lot of people on the plane. It was a fully booked flight, and it just basically just kept getting hotter and hotter. At one point, the pilot came over the loudspeaker. We were 5th in line at that point. At one point, we were 13 in line, so we had made progress and we were getting closer. The pilot came over the speaker and basically said, "We're going back. We have a number of emergencies in the back of the plane, and we need to get back to the gate ASAP."
Now, multiple passengers on board suffered from medical issues during this. Tell us a little bit more about what you saw and how you felt health-wise during this.
Yeah, luckily I had a water on me. They weren't passing out water, so a lot of people didn't have water on board. A lot of people were diabetic. They didn't have food. You could start to see that the flight attendants were panicking as we were heading back to the gate. So I was more towards the front, but you could tell that something bad was happening in the back. There was also a person in first class that had fainted at that point. By the time we got back to the gate, paramedics were waiting. There was an ambulance on the ground. They came on board. Probably at first it was only a fire department, and then 3 to 4 other men came on board to help out as well with bigger backpacks. As they head towards the back, you knew that people were getting sick. They were throwing up. The sanitary people came on board to clean everything up. A woman came up to the front. She was very faint, basically going down. They ended up running up and down the aisles with oxygen tanks. They had oxygen masks on people. At one point, they said over the loudspeaker, "If you're having a medical emergency, please just press your call button so we can send someone to your seat." It was just chaotic. It was bad, and it was really, for me, it was traumatizing, so I can't even imagine what it was like if you were a child on the flight. There was babies on the flight. It was a lot to deal with.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like it. And I want to go back to what you said, though, about there being no water or food that was being passed out. Was it because they didn't have it on board already, or what was the explanation for that?
I think the reasoning was while we were taxiing or moving or sitting still out on the tarmac, nobody was supposed to be getting out of their seats, including the flight attendant. Once we got back, even when we started heading back and they could tell that things were happening, they got water right away, got sandwiches out to, they had the diabetics raise their hand, pass out some sandwiches. They really did. I don't want to put down on the flight attendants because they did such an amazing job, and they were in the same position we were in. One of the flight attendants, by the time we all got off, came out on a stretcher with an oxygen mask on. So they ended up canceling the flight because the flight attendants got ill. We were going to get back on at one point, and they just said, "Forget it, we'll do it in the morning," which they ended up canceling it the next morning as well. So it's just been quite the nightmare.
Wow. Yeah, Krista, I'm sorry that you went through that other passengers, everyone, the flight crew had to deal with all of this. You didn't make it out of Las Vegas on that flight, as you said. So when did you finally leave?
I actually just landed in Salt Lake City, which is my layover to try to get back to Washington, D.C. about 5 minutes ago. So I left about an hour ago, Las Vegas.
Oh, my goodness. So how is Delta going to fix this? How are they remedying the situation? Have you heard from them yet?
So they sent us all, first of all, they gave us meal vouchers once we got off the plane. After 4 hours, they said, we need to get everybody off this plane to cool it down, and hopefully we'll be able to take off. About 2 hours later, after they were taking people out on stretchers, they called it, canceled the flight until 7 a.m. the next day. They gave us all hotels, as many as they could give out, because from what I understand, there was other flights that were canceled for similar situations. Ours just seemed to be one of the worst. They gave us hotels, they gave us meal vouchers, and this morning I woke up to an apology email. They gave us 20,000 miles to our account, but it's actually kind of comical because in the first place, the flight we were on was overbooked, and they were giving out vouchers for $1,000 to not take the flight. And about 8 people took the $1,000, and they're the luckiest people on that flight because we ended up stuck in the heat with paramedics on board.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's an understatement. Krista, I cannot believe what you and other passengers had to go through on this flight. Any other final thoughts on what happened? Anything else that you would like to add? This is, like you said, a traumatizing experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these situations need to be thought about more before you're leaving the gate. If you know that there's backup like that, which I'm assuming these airlines do, if there's 13 planes and they're stuck and you know that the air isn't going to be working while you're sitting there, it's probably not the best idea to go out there. I mean, I'm no flight expert, but that would just be my mindset. And again, my heart goes out to the people that were on that flight working, because I know it was traumatizing for them as well.
Oh, me too. Krista, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about your experience.
Oh, my apologies. I still had my mic muted. Thank you, Natasha. She's paying attention. She's like, honey, child, we can't hear you. All right. So listen, the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, I think is his name, says that the reports are shocking and that they are investigating. He went on to say, according to an interview at Reuters, I want to know how it was possible for passengers to be left in triple-digit heat on board an aircraft. So I have no idea for that long. It's really crazy. He says that we're going to hold the airline accountable for any violations, including of rules around how long airlines may sit on the ground when with passengers aboard. So they have these rules. Federal rules say that major U.S. airlines must allow passengers to get off if a delay lasts 3 hours or longer for domestic flights, and for international flight, the threshold is 4 hours, which to me is still ridiculous. I mean, really? Airlines must provide a snack and water if delays last longer than 2 hours. And so Delta said it is aware of and cooperating with the investigation. No doubt they're probably going to be looking at some hefty fines for this situation. I don't know whose decision this was. Again, the airline has apologized for the incident. At least one person required medical attention for heat-related discomfort. They're having a heat stroke. And they're looking into the circumstances that led to the uncomfortable temperatures inside of the cabin. The airline tracking website, Flight Radar 24, showed that the Boeing 757 aircraft left the gate of the Las Vegas airport on Monday afternoon, but never left the ground. The plane taxied to the end of a runway and then turned around and returned to the terminal. Wow. So pretty crazy. Airlines can face significant fines for violations of the delay regulations. And listen to this. In 2019, Delta received a $750,000 fine for 11 flights that violated the rule. The airline was given credit toward that fine for spending $450,000 on customer compensation and upgrading technology and processes. Unbelievable. Over 100 degrees. People were stuck. Delta Flight 555. Like that lady said, the 8 people, because the flight was overbooked, who decided to take the $1,000 and run, Boy, they must have went back to the casinos and tried to play some numbers because they're the luckiest people in the world. Mm-mm. So, they're still talking about the heat situation causing fires in California, health warnings in places like Phoenix, temperatures measured above 110 degrees for 21 straight days, which is setting a new record for the city of Phoenix. So they're calling it a heat wave, but geez, on peace. Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas saw temperatures of over 100 degrees on Monday. And so, the excessive heat continues to cause problems. But I tell you what, you got to be sensible when you're dealing with certain things, like you've got passengers sitting in a flight. No, sir. Anyway, I can't even imagine. So listen, speaking of flight situations, you guys might have noticed this morning that we posted a story about Cayman Airways. So, if you travel this weekend, you probably, only if you were coming out of Miami, really, you would be aware that there were some issues with Cayman Airways. So here's the lowdown. I'm going to give you all the full thing of what actually happened with Cayman Airways. So apparently Cayman Airways had a part that was needed for one of the jets, and it had to come from Europe, and it did not come in the anticipated time frame. So one of the 737-8s was basically, on what would you call it? Grounded, literally, for the weekend. And so that aircraft being grounded for the weekend impacted the schedule. And it's a part that's needed for the aircraft's weather radar. So pretty important part. They were expecting to get it earlier in the week. That was the plan. Things did not go according to plan. They also had a sports charter that was coming out of, where was that again? That one was coming out of Minneapolis. And so that charter also impacted the schedule, which, would not have normally been there. And so that youth group, they had to get back home. So basically 2 flights on Saturday were combined. I was impacted by that. I was supposed to originally come in at 3:30 Saturday afternoon. Then it was changed to 8 o'clock, and then it was changed back to 6 o'clock. So we were like 3 hours delayed. But you know what? Cayman Airways did send out their email notifications. So we got it in enough time. I was aware of what was going on. I think the thing for me, and again, I say this all the time, I feel a lot of times this falls on deaf ears. And I don't know why y'all so stubborn with your deaf ears. Gabby says no sound on the radio. Hold on. Let me check my radio feed, honey. Gabby, you're the only person saying that. So let me double check. Gabby says no sound on the radio. Nope. Radio's good. Let me check my radio feed, honey. Gabby. Yep. That's the streaming on the radio. So double check, honey. Refresh, Gabby. Yeah. So for me, if you know what's happening, listen, things happen, right? Y'all know travel, you have a knock-on effect. One plane is down, it impacts the entire scheduling perhaps. And so these things happen. You expect it when you travel sometimes. And I must tell you, since Cayman Airways has had the MAX 8s, there has been less of a delay. Like I don't hear as many delays. Sunday was like the worst day to travel because the Cuba flight, that Cuba flight was always late, always delayed. And then that pushed down the Miami flight. Charles, sometimes you'd be rolling in like all midnight. That's what happened last night. They got in like 1 o'clock in the morning. It was just really, really a pain traveling on Sunday. And a lot of people avoid traveling on a Sunday wherever possible. I think if you just communicate to people, the people who are impacted, you let them know what's going on. I saw in the women's group, someone posted up, my mother was coming in and she couldn't get here in time. And so this one said, since when did Cayman Airways service the Minneapolis route? You see, people don't know what's going on. So of course they're going off of this flight radar 24. Everybody's now a pilot when they read that. And we think we all know what's happening. So I'm here to inform y'all this morning now, honey Jill. that was a direct result of a charter flight, right? So it's not that we service Minneapolis. It was a charter flight because there was a youth group there having some sports event. And so they chartered a Cayman Airways flight. So I think that Cayman Airways, like every other government agency, needs to communicate better with the general public. Just let people know what's going on. You know, we will, make accommodations and so forth. So, when I heard, okay, they were going to be delayed, I was like, oh, honey child, let's go to Target. We can now make that Target trip, which was not going to be on the agenda before. Gianna was so tickled pink because she loves her Target, honey child. And, people are going to make adjustments, but you have to tell them. When you don't tell them what's happening, that leads to speculation. So I'll tell you how bad the speculation got. One person said to me that, these Cayman Airways planes are already falling apart and they're brand new and what the heck, and did it. I'm like, whoa. But that's what happens when you don't communicate with people. They get all kinds, they start to guess and they start to circulate these messages on WhatsApp. You have got to control the rumor mill if you're a government agency or department. How do you control the rumor mill? You simply tell people, listen, we're waiting on a part from Europe. The part didn't come. We apologize. It's going to mean some delays, but we're working feverishly to get it done. Safety first. Everybody loves Cayman Airways because they have an amazing history and track record for putting safety first, right? We all love that. We all appreciate that. And nobody wants that to change. At the same time, if there's a delay, it can inconvenience you and y'all be getting all upset and all in your feelings. But, let me be very, very clear. That's, sometimes going to happen. Sometimes you're going to have delays. Planes are mechanical. They need parts. They need maintenance. And sometimes things just break or they, need to be replaced. And there's really not much you can do about it except try to get the part here as soon as possible. Now, it's interesting that the part has to come all the way from Europe and that there's nowhere in the Americas that had it because, of course, if it could have been sourced quicker out of the U.S., I'm sure that would have been done. So the other thing I want to say about this situation is let's keep things in perspective here. On Saturday, they had 10 jet flights, and it was only the Miami flight that was actually impacted by this delay. So, hello, one flight out of 10 others, so 1 out of 11, really? That ain't too shabby when you think about it. Perspective is a hell of a thing, isn't it? Now, of course, if you were in the Miami flight, like I was, you might have still been tapping your fingers like WTF. But 10 other flights went in and out all over the place, and they were perfectly fine and on time. And in fact, somebody was saying earlier that that was Blake on 106, that his flight from, did he say Tampa? But his flight actually came in early. So it didn't impact everybody. However, let me say this. I'm going to thank Cayman Airways and the Cayman Islands government for having those MAX 8 flights, MAX 8, the 737 planes, right? Because, honey child, they had to do this subservice plane, which basically means that they had, I forget what the airline's called, but they rented another company to bring us in out of Miami on Friday evening. I not seen a plane like that in my life yet. I don't know where they got a plane from. It's not the usual 3 seats that we're used to. Even in the older planes, they had three seats on each side. This was like 2 seats on each side. First class, I feel bad for anybody who actually paid for first class. I would be demanding a refund because those first class seats were not first class seats. I don't know what they were. They didn't look comfortable at all. They might have had a little bit more leg room. There's only 4 on each side. There's only 8 of them in total. And let me tell you something. That flight made me, in the bins were so small, you could even fit your overhead stuff properly. That really made me appreciate how fortunate we've been to have decent planes, even before the 737-8, the MAX 8. Those other planes were better than what I got on Saturday. And I was just like, Lord, please Just get us home safely. That's all we're asking for. Because this plane is nothing about no comfort. Nothing. Poor me. I'm trying to sleep because y'all know I love to sleep in a plane. And my little head was like rolling around. Like I couldn't even get a comfortable position. I was just like, listen, what was the name of the carrier again? I don't know. I was like, just get us home safe, please. Because no. This plane just not. There was a pilot on the plane too, and I had to chuckle with him when I saw him. I was like, oh, thank you, Cayman Airways. Oh, honey, chill. They need to pick another subcontracting plane or company or whatever, because that one was just not it. Oh no. I was like, chill. Well, what company this is? Did they even hand out any water and refreshments on the plane? I don't think they offered any service during the flight. I was just like, get me home. Hurry up and get me home safely. Anywho, so big shout out to Cayman Airways, but improve your communication, please. Y'all need to tell people what's going on now. So that explains the, and then the thing about it too, because you know that the other routes like LAX. So on Sunday, there were no delays or anything from JFK or LAX. So again, it impacted, I think, Miami. So on Sunday, they split something based on the number of flights, right? So the longer routes though, Los Angeles and New York, the thing about those is they have to be very, very careful because again, they're very, very strict rules about how much rest staff, including pilots and the people working the flights, how much rest that they're required. So the crew is required to have, depending on work schedules, a certain amount of rest where they're not actually working and on a plane. So, if they don't get them back quickly enough, then they end up having to overnight or even longer in these other destinations. So that becomes even more of a problem. So yeah, this is part of the business, so just let us know what's going on and everybody's going to be okay. Speaking of travel, so this morning at 11 o'clock, the government, the Minister of Tourism and Ports will be making an announcement about a new, oh, hold on, somebody calling me, honey child, but it shouldn't be ringing like that, so let me just unplug it and plug it back in. Whenever you see it ringing like that, that means the board isn't going to pick it up. Okay, hold on, I think I fixed it. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program. Hello? No? All right, call me back, honey child. Call me back. Because anytime I can hear it ringing outside, that means that why does this phone say why does it say this message at the bottom? Child, y'all know I'm not used to an Android, Nina. I don't know nothing about these phones, honey child. Okay, here we go. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
What happened? I get cut off.
Yeah, I was trying to fix it so we could hear you online. How you doing?
I say Jamaica flight were also affected on Sunday too, because I had a friend that were going on and that flight leaves on Sunday around 4 something, and they were delayed till 7:40. They said.
Okay.
For the last thing they get on it, and then my friend from down they called me because the family to them and asked me because they know that the plane always cross here. And I walked outside, tell them I've been fast because 7:40 is like 20 to 8. And I walked outside until the mosquitoes come down. I had to run in, and I never did hurt it, so I don't know if it went last night at all. And then this morning, it went out, but that normally passes here no later than at least 2-3 minutes past 7. And this morning, it crossed exactly 10 past 7, so it was a little bit late this morning too. So I don't know if they ever did went last night and they just canceled and went out this morning or what, but that went back too because I was saying that's funny that because like I tell my sister one day when she was talking about all these airlines being so late and the flights are so terrible, and I say, well, that must be the American carriers because we hardly have any delays on Cayman Airways. I said it mostly be the American airlines. And then my daughter went back on Saturday to Tampa, and she never had no problem. So she just she just missed it then, I guess. But like you say, things happen because they're on the planes, and we break down sometimes as humans, so it's expected. But then, like I say, they shouldn't put you on no like belt on no flight and stuff because people is dying from heat. Down there away, tell you this is terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
That's
never
for sure.
feel heat in my 60 years. But anyway, the Bible speaks about everything. The cities that change the time, so we can get more and heat, I guess, to come. I don't know. It's just
My dear, global warming.
Yes, ma'am. So we just gotta go with it. They go with the flow or whatever. So
Yeah. Thank you, my dear. Appreciate it.
yeah, can't do nothing about that.
Okay. All right, honey. Thanks. Appreciate it. So most of the flights were definitely not impacted by the delays. Like I said, it is what it is. I just think that you let people know what's going on. You cut down on the speculation about what's happening. So Miss, who did I see said that they're late? Miss Olive says she's late this morning. So she's going to just sit herself in the back of the classroom. Alejandro's being gracious and says that your application has been accepted to join the students in the back. My goodness. So Gilder says, I was on the flight last night, was delayed from 6:40 until 12:30. And we didn't get in until 1:49 this morning. So girl, let me tell you now, apparently that particular flight was the worst delayed. And originally I was actually trying to come back on Sunday because my kind of travel was last minute. It was a very last minute trip. And I was like, if I had 2 full days in Miami, that would be so much better. Let me see if I could come back on Sunday. But that Sunday flight was full. All I can say is, hold on now. I'm going to tell y'all what I would have to say this morning to that situation is,
Praise the Lord.
I'm so glad I did not have to come back last night, because when you're traveling with kids, as an adult, maybe I could handle it. I've done those late flights before. 149 is kind of late though. I got to tell you the truth. That one I'm just getting sleep good. But when you have children, they're not always used to it and accommodating them. They get miserable and oh Lord. So I feel your pain. I feel your pain for anybody who had to come into that flight. And then the worst part is the poor customs and airport staff. They be like, we just trying to go home, because they also get delayed and have to stay all these ridiculous hours and stuff as well. So they'd be like, let me just stamp your thing. Get out. RD Limited says cancellations and delays are part of air travel. It is. Just like all these security checks. Can I ask somebody a question? I need an answer to this. Why is it that when you travel out of Cayman, security-wise, children, so I've got a 6-year-old, has to take her shoes off. Now, y'all know I am a little bit of a germaphobe, probably not a little bit, probably a lot. And so when I travel with the medical booties, and I put those on when I take my shoes off and have to walk through the airport. Because I know for a fact, nobody ain't cleaning that carpet or mopping that floor properly. The amount of germs, if somebody took a swab, I'd hate to see the results of the amount of germs on the floor. So I'm not putting my feet on that and then have to put my feet back in my shoes. Ew. So I walk with booties. Now, here in Cayman, they require my daughter to take her shoes off. But in Miami, as a kid, she doesn't have to take her shoes off. Why? Are we not following the same rules? I need somebody at Miami, at security at airport to explain this to me. Are we not following the same rules? Because the U.S. was the one who set the rules, mind you, about, somebody tried to put a bomb in their shoes. They should have exploded themselves, to be honest. But, are we not following the same rules? Like, why here do kids have to do it, but in the U.S., kids don't have to do it? Make up your mind. I'd rather her not have to do it, because then she's the one who's having to walk on that nasty floor. I need to try to get some surgical booties that are like small enough for her. I don't know. Somebody says we fall into British rules or something foolish, some foolishness like that. I don't know, boy, but can we get a firm answer to this? I haven't traveled to the UK, so I don't know if they do it there where kids have to take their shoes off. I'm like, come on. The man wasn't successful, thankfully, in exploiting anything with the thing in his shoes. Can we get a little break post 9/11? Ugh, that just talk about a disruptor. Aliana says, wait, why was the part flown in from Europe going right up the road? Well, I can't, like I said, I can't speak to that, but I would imagine that if they could have gotten the part from the United States of America, they would have. So I don't know. Did our planes come through? I thought they were built in the US, but I don't know how Boeing operates. But yeah, it had to come from Europe, apparently. Alejandro says, yep, I get it all the time. I'd be leaving Cayman from 7 a.m. and reaching California all 12 a.m. I embrace the journey. Best money to spend is on delays, or is it just me? Say what? I'm not even sure I understand that. Damaris, good morning. Aliano says, oh, wow, that's what that flight was, laid in bed and said it's 1 a.m. and Cayman Airways still flying. So you could hear it coming in. Yeah. Yes, honey, chill. Ooh, Andrew says, honey, chill. We got to get our honey child shirts done. Sandra, have to understand that's an old place. Where? What's an old place? I'm not sure. All right. So, Philip, good morning. Let me see here now. Philip says the problem with Cayman Airways' current situation is that there's no redundancy in terms of aircraft based on the current flight schedule. They need at least one more aircraft if they're to continue to expand their schedule. It only takes one simple maintenance issue to happen and the whole schedule goes awry. I mean, yes, I think one more aircraft would make sense, especially if they're continuing to expand, which we'll hear about the new destination here at 11 o'clock. I think, yes, I don't know if we can afford one more, though, is probably the problem. I don't know what's in the budget, and I don't know how much money we're making on some of these routes. The other thing I think that needs to happen is there needs to be more. We have. Okay. The other thing that I think needs to happen is that there has to be more advertising for some of these routes, because I have it on good authority that, honey, chill, some of these, I mean, going to LA is perfectly fine, but no, the flights, they don't be full. They be kind of light. And so we need advertising in both directions, not just people coming this way, because I guess that's good for people like Gigi Hadid, so she can come and have a little spliff and whatever. But what about those of us, entice me to go to California? What's in California? Somebody was saying to me the other day, oh my God, there's nothing to do in California. I was like, what? Have you ever been to California? For me, California, and I've not traveled a whole lot of the US states, I must say, but to me, California is probably the most interesting state in terms of like topography. And I mean, it's not just Los Angeles, where all the homeless people are sitting next to the Hollywood stars on the ground. There's a lot to California. California is a very, very interesting state. And it's very varied in terms of what you can do. I mean, some of the most beautiful places that I went were like Monterey, some of the smaller areas in California, just like super cool and super interesting. So someone said that LA flights are that route is actually doing good. Don't be fooled by anyone. It's making money and it's bringing good business. Okay. So, all right. Well, fill her up going that direction too. I see a couple of y'all going to Las Vegas, but there's more to it than just Las Vegas. There's so many other things that you can do. But yeah. So the big announcement will be made at 11 o'clock this morning. I already know where it is, but I ain't telling y'all. I'm not about to steal the minister's thunder. I could, but I'm not that salty this morning. We're feeling good, so we're going to behave ourselves today. But I know exactly where it's going. We'll talk about it tomorrow in terms of what is there to do at that particular jurisdiction. I've already been mulling it over in my brain, so I think I need to make a little trip here shortly. So, yes, it was World Atlantic. Thank you so much, Philip. That was the name of. I've never even heard of World Atlantic. Who on earth are they? They're like a real airline? I guess so. Never heard of them in my life. Miss Morning says, Sandy, that's why I travel like Oliver. He always travel with his pot of food. Well, I don't know if you need a whole pot, but yes, I'm normally okay with that food. But when you're traveling with children, always be prepared because they'd be like, no, I'm not hungry. And the second you get on that flight, Mommy, I need some food. I'm starving. I was like, excuse me, 5 minutes ago, before we got on this plane, you said you were not hungry. So the last time this happened, we had gone to the little Margaritaville, I think it is, in the Miami airport. And I got her some food. And of course, she didn't eat it. No, I'm not really hungry. And I said, pack the food up. You're going to thank me later. And sure enough, when we got on the plane, I'm hungry. And I said, oh, you're hungry, are you? Here's your sandwich that you just wouldn't eat 10 minutes ago. Oh, wow, this is so delicious. I'm like, oh, Lord, kids. We were, I think this is the morning that we got her up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to head to the airport. She's like, Mom, she calls me, she doesn't call me Mom. She calls me, oh Lord. It's her own kind of variation on Mummy. But anyway, she's like, you're the best mom in the entire world. I was like, really? Aw, you know how that really melts your heart when kids say that to you. Of course, they don't know anything about moms or whatever, but to them, you are the best mom in the entire world, and you just take care of me. And they tell you in their own little way why you're so special to them. Just like makes your heart just dumpity dump. So I just was like, oh, thank you so much. Bring it in, hugs. So we did a little bit of a girl trip. Some people needed a mental health break in our group, and we just it was quick in and out, but we just had a fabulous time. No drama. We just, hit the mall for a minute, went to Walmart, of course. We got to hit Target, one Ross store, a couple Ross stores, Cheesecake Factory. So I got to have my sauteed mushrooms, which I love from Cheesecake Factory. Oh my God. I don't even have cheesecake when I go there. I just eat all the delicious food. Morning, caller.
Hey, good morning, Sandra. We missed you on Friday.
I know. Now you know I was in Miami, honey chill.
I thought you had gone Las Vegas too.
Not yet. It's too hot for Vegas, man. I can't take the triple digits and stuff. Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra, on Friday, we had our Honorable Minister for Tourism, Kenneth Bryan, on Radio Cayman.
Okay.
And he was speaking about gratuity, people that work in tourism, and on about tourism. Now, I have worked in tourism most of my working life. I began that way. So I do know about tourism. I worked in tourism before His Honorable was even born. So that would tell you. But what I'm getting at, he says that the gratuity is including in the salary. Now, gratuity is paid by our guests to this island. Then they have to pay government tax and some more tax, not quite as much as United States, which I don't see any gratuity added on your hotel slips in United States or the parts that I've been in. But you do see tax and tax and tax and tax. But we don't get that. That is belonging to United States, as you would know. The thing is, Sandra, if we keep adding our gratuity, and it went up and third time up, what is the guests of our island getting for all of this? They're paying us to serve. serve them, whether it's the restaurant or whether it's the hotel. Now, how he can make that right, I do not know. But it started from the hotels. And the gratuity is also shared with management, which is not right. They get their big salaries otherwise. I still don't know how he can make that right to anyone. I don't care how many committees he put there, it is not right. The gratuity is for the people that is working. It's the waiters, waitresses, bartenders, and the list goes on. The maids especially. Now, tips is a different thing. Sometimes tips is given to you because they love you. They love your service. You gave them good service. You were polite. That's the way it should be in this little island. But if we don't watch out, Sandra, and Mr. Kenneth can His Honorable Kenneth, forgive me, can make this gratuity included. That's to pay your salary. So what is the hotel paying? What is the hotel or restaurants, which and condos and rental apartments? What are they paying then? You get what I'm saying? They are paid. They are paid sometimes $400, $500 in the season, and per night. Then government taxes are added. Then it's gratuity added. So what is the hotel paying? It is not right. I don't care how they would try to turn that around. It is not right. Now, what happens if the salary is paid, not if, it is paid from gratuities? What happens? We're slowing down season. We only have 6 months out of each year for tourism season, and it's already slowing down. What happens when maid is paid only for 3 days a week because that's all the work that they have? What happens to them if they didn't do a little bit of savings in 6 months? I don't know how they can do it with the prices we have and other things that they have to pay, other responsibilities. But is anybody looking at this or even asking questions? I know I'm going to get a back flack from it, but do I care? No, I don't care because I know what I'm speaking about, and I have worked long in it. My husband has worked long in it, so we know what well, I can't say him because we discussed it, but not very long. It needs to be something done with our hotels, or I can say this much. We're going to price ourselves right out of the tourism section. When I hear people that I know that have stayed in the condos and stuff, and I'm friendly with, say, they came down. They didn't stay in their condo because at the time their condo was rented. When they came down to stay at a certain hotel just for 3 days or 4 days to see the change. Couldn't stay there. Now, these are condos owners. Couldn't stay there the amount of time that they came because all they seen were just bills coming to them. When you have to pay for room service, $11 for a Coke, which we know we're not getting the Coke. we're getting glass 3/4 full of ice, and the rest may be Coke. Then, or any kind of soda. So, what are we giving our guests that is visiting this island? So they had to move out and move back into their condo, or not their condo, into a friend's condo that wasn't rented at the moment. Come on, we have to do better. We must do better, or we're gonna lose everything.
All right, let's talk about it. Leave me there with those comments. Leave me there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll certainly do that.
Thank you so much
for taking my call.
Yes, absolutely. So it's quite interesting that this caller brought up gratuities, because in fact, just last week, there was an interesting, you guys know that I listen to news from all over the world, and I try to get a much broader perspective outside of the Cayman Islands in terms of what's going on, because I know that we think so many things are unique to us. Everything in Cayman, work permits, encroachment on our jobs, this, that, and the next thing, cultural issues, misunderstandings, people giving each other bun and cheese. Y'all think that's uniquely Caymanian or Caribbean? Listen, these things happen all over the world. And just last week on Wednesday, I was listening to a very, very interesting, I'm going to let you guys listen to it now, podcast about this very same thing. Now, if you traveled recently to the United States of America, you'll know that in most instances on your ticket, they will make recommendations on how much you should tip. Now, what's the difference between gratuities versus tips? I don't even know, to be honest. Is there a difference? I think in the mind of the average person, there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. In this jurisdiction, there is a automatic charge for most places that you go, which they have labeled gratuities, right? Now, it's interesting because in the US, that doesn't tend to be the case. Sometimes they do it for larger parties, then they'll include the gratuities, but run-of-the-mill restaurants, whatever, in the US, they don't really add gratuities. Hotels and stuff, they don't add, gratuities. So, they've got, I guess, taxes, which they add on that we don't necessarily have here. But it does help to offset the salary that these industry workers, mostly tourism industry workers, are making. But we're not the only people that are struggling with this issue, caller, believe it or not. So the minister, if he's listening this morning, might actually find this interesting. So have a listen to this. Struggles all over the world. Before we move on to that, let me wrap up the Cayman Airways topic really quickly. One person says, there's none like our Cayman Airways. Another person clarified that the flight was actually the MD-83 was the aircraft. Never heard of it. Never been on one of those before. So there you go. At least now I can say I've been on an MD-83. Don't care to go on another one again. They said that sometimes we use Miami Air or one of those usual companies they rely on, which in this case are World Atlantic. And we have used them several times in the past before. And this person says, okay, they used to be here here more often because we got the new planes and they made some good money out of Cayman, talking about World Atlantic. So, all right, moving on. Let's talk about the gratuities issue. A lot of you who work in the industries, and this is why sometimes you say, well, the bank should know that I make all this money. But as that last caller said, in off season, you may not be making that much. So you got to really kind of pay attention to, like everybody else, you better have more than one stream of revenue to kind of float you through times, right? So listen to this, folks. Again, super, super interesting. Here we go.
So-called tipflation has consumers fuming. People are pushing back against the social pressure of the tip screen on digital transactions and the higher amounts that they're being asked to tip. But NPR's Stacey Vanek Smith wondered about the other side of that screen and how the workers feel. Here she is with more.
Dylan Shanker got his first job as a barista in 2010. It was just a way to make rent.
At first, it was just a job, but then you kind of become passionate about it.
So passionate that 13 years later, Shanker is still working as a barista, now at a cafe in Philadelphia.
I've become kind of a nerd about it. I have some of my own equipment that I'll bring with me.
Like Shanker's special portafilter, which lets him see the coffee while it's brewing. Shanker says he knows exactly what a perfect cup of coffee should look like and taste like.
A good espresso shot. It has kind of like a creamy, full mouth, just like slightly sour, slightly bitter.
Also slightly bitter these days, the tipping situation.
I know tipping with baristas is weird.
It wasn't always like this. When Dylan started out, tipping was in cash, and it wasn't much. He took home roughly $10 a day. But tipping gradually became a bigger and bigger part of his pay, and has gotten more and more uncomfortable.
This sort of like awkwardness, it's like verboten to say out loud anything about tipping in front of the tip screen.
And every once in a while, things get really weird.
I remember this one guy, he looks up at me and he's like, I accidentally tipped. I'm like, what do you expect me to respond to that? I'm sorry.
The rise of the tip screen in businesses from fast food to grocery stores has been causing a lot of confusion and outrage for customers.
I mean, even my own niece called me about this.
Sylvia Allegretto is an economist at the Center for Economic and Policy Research.
I became an economist because I was a low-wage worker for a long, long time, and I was a tipped worker.
Allegretto says being a tipped worker is tough. Poverty rates for tipped workers are more than double that of other workers. Allegretto says we tend to think of tips as a bonus for good service, but in reality, they are something else entirely.
It's a subsidy. It's a wage subsidy to the employer. It's not a tip. It goes to your wage. It's just the amount that the employer doesn't have to pay you. And people don't understand this.
And here's where we get to this moment we're having in tipping. With inflation happening across the economy, businesses are dealing with rising costs. At the same time, there's a lot of pressure to keep prices low for increasingly frugal customers. Tipping is a way to get more money from customers without actually charging them more. Money that goes to paying workers.
If there is some means of tipping that's available to you, that should signal to you that they aren't being paid enough. Tipping is sort of an acknowledgement of that fact.
Barista Dylan Shanker says tips make up 10 to 20% of his pay, a very volatile 10 to 20% that totally relies on the whims and moods of customers.
If you aren't tipping them, and you are taking advantage of that labor.
Tipping is presented as a choice, a thank you for great service. But businesses are using tips as a baked-in part of worker pay and a way to attract often hard-to-find workers. More and more companies are doing this, and customers are increasingly resentful about the awkward tip screen moments and the unexpectedly high final bill. But Shanker says a lot of people don't understand the wages service workers actually make. He is 39, he has a decade of experience and expertise, and
I've never made more than $25,000 a year. I cannot even wrap my head around the idea of even just making $30,000 or $40,000 a year. I could just do so much with just that much money.
Roughly half of Shanker's customers tip, which is in line with the national average. But data shows customers have an increasingly negative view of tipping. Tips are down from last year by nearly 10% for food service workers. And just in case you were wondering if workers can tell if you've tipped or not from the tip screens, they can.
There's just something really, really demoralizing about someone seeing that screen, knowing I'm not rich and kind of just not caring about you enough to kind of want to help you make a living.
Especially when he is standing there with their perfectly balanced, sour but not too sour espresso drink. Stacey Vanek Smith, NPR News.
That's pretty crazy. And I must tell you, quite frankly, I have always
so-called tipflation has
consumers. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me pull that.
People are pushing back against
there we go. Sorry, I had it on repeat loop. So here's the thing. I try to tip people. I'm not the best with numbers, but I try to quickly in my head, and it's helpful now that they do put it on the bottom of the of a lot of the receipt or what do we call it? Receipts? No, not receipt. Your check, the bottom of your check. Because then it helps me to quickly figure out if you want to do 10, 15, 20%, whatever. I try to tip well because, again, listen to this guy. $25,000 a year is all he making. My God, can you imagine? Some of y'all making 3, 4, 5 times that and y'all still complaining that it's not enough money to survive. Everybody's in this boat together. Everybody's having, issues with tips, and it's just crazy what's happening out there. And if you're an industry worker, I think you have to sympathize with those people. Even gas station attendants, right? In the US, they make you pump your own gas. So, we're so used here to people are pumping our gas and, all these things. And we do not tip these industry workers. And I think sometimes we have to kind of think about it. When I go to the gas station, I try to at least give them a couple of dollars in their hands. They're probably only making minimum wage. So be better at tipping. Even when you go to the grocery store and you see the baggers, they're working their little summer jobs. I love a young person with a hustle factor. I love to see young people like, I want to work. I want something to do. I'm like, yes, honey child, let's get that summer job, right? Because that's setting them up for a good work ethic going into adulthood. And they have their own little spending money. There's nothing like having your own spending money. So when you go your little trips for the summer, shopping, whatever, you're good to go. And so, although I'm not a person that walks with cash, you all know that already. Don't be asking me for no money because I'm normally not going to have it. If I know I'm going to the grocery store, now I'm trying to be more conscientious about having a couple dollars in my bag to tip. And I love that these young people, their eyes light up. You give them a little $5, they're like, oh. And sometimes I feel like I'm overcompensating and I'm tipping for everybody else that didn't tip. I'm like, oh, let me give them a little 10 today because, they probably didn't get any tips all day long. And they're so appreciative. So see what y'all can do about the tipping situation. And then, of course, if you aren't, if you work in that type of business, know that, during slow season, of course, your salary and your income is going to be impacted. Hotels are slowing down and so forth. So if the gratuities are pooled, which I understand that some entities do, then, obviously that's a whole other situation. So that's the fewer bookings they have, the less money you're going to be making in grats. Somebody called me last week, and I need to look into this before I have too much to say about it, that there's a particular property in Cayman that has told staff just the other day that they cannot, they can't use any of the facilities on site. So even if they're not working, they can't go to this hotel and use any of the hotel facilities or whatever. And they can't go to the coffee shop on their lunch break and buy lunch or anything on site. It's a little bit weird, and I want to find out more about it before I speak on it. Because to me, it sounds peculiar, but I'm like, let me try to reach out to the hotel management and see what this is all about, because I just don't understand it and I just don't know. So this person says, Sandy, I always try to carry cash in hand for me to give a tip, not in the check. So we've gotten a bit of information here. Yes. Okay. So it looks like we need to review some of that about minimum wage. I think the minimum wage people are coming on this week. Let me try and double check that, honey chill. I know CUC is coming back this week. It might even be as soon as tomorrow. I'll get some confirmation from them. They wanted to come on and talk about something. So let me just see here. Oh, we got a call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Sorry, Sandra, but I had to call in again.
Okay.
Gratuities are not added mostly in the States. I think I had said that before. In restaurants, yes, they add the tips, but that's not gratuities. In hotels, in condos here or in the Caribbean, it is gratuities that is added along with your government accommodation tax and whatever tax else that you have to pay, not you yourself or guests or visiting guests. Now, tips is something that, like I said before, is sometimes what they do is to put it in an envelope and give it to you in your hand. That is not for the hotel. That is for you because they were happy of their service. Some people says, well, they cannot pay it because they just paid gratuity. Are we getting the gratuity, a share of the gratuity? And some people say yes, but that is included in, and then the guest that is tipping you may give you an extra 10 or an extra 20, or sometimes they would give you the money, the CI money that is left over, which is not much, and they'll ask you, well, how much that is in US? And then you say, oh, it's so and so. But then they'll add some US to it. So gratuities is a must on accommodate on your hotel bill, along with the accommodation tax, which goes to the government. That doesn't come to the worker, as we know. That goes to the government. The government has to pay, the hotel has to pay the government each month or every month, because you get a bill. And if you don't pay it, the tourism department would be down on you. Accommodation tax is what I'm speaking about. But I still say gratuity should not be involved in your salary. We didn't have gratuities before many years ago. It was for you to give excellent service to that guest, and then they would tip you, because we didn't have the gratuity. It was the hotel that started doing that, so they could take that gratuity, split it up, and pay you your salary. What little salary that you are getting from the hotel is so small, they don't even want to mention it when you have your interview or when you have a meeting or whatever they have. They don't want to mention it because it is too small, and that goes also for the managers, the assistant manager, which should be stopped because they have a salary every month, and or every 2 weeks. They should not be shared around in with management, any kind of management.
I don't want to necessarily make this full show about gratuities, but what I would say is I don't know if the minimum wage committee, I know it's something that they are thinking about and they have on their agenda, but I don't know if they're going to be changing the entire structure of how gratuities operate and how they work. For the average person, they don't see a difference between a gratuity and a tip. And I think that is, even I'm just reading it online, according to Wikipedia, it's the same thing. A gratuity, often called a tip, is a sum of money customarily given by customers to certain service workers, such as hospitality, for the service that they have performed, in addition to the basic price of the service. So people are not distinguishing between a tip and a gratuity. They're treating them one and the same. So, I mean,
I don't know how they can make that out because
even according to the UK government website guidance on tips, gratuities, service charges, and so on, it says a gratuity or a tip, and then it goes on to talk more about it. So they're using them in very much the same way. But leave us there.
I quite understand that. I understood what the economist said just now, but she's speaking mostly of parts like in United States and even parts in Europe. In United States, they go up on the tips in the restaurants. They give you 15%, 18%, 20, 22%, and on and on. That is up to you. If you got good service, then you pay according to that service. That's tips. Here they add on gratuity, and the tips is none of their doggone business, as far as I'm concerned. It's none of their business. Whatever that tourists or guests want to give you.
All right, we do have another caller, so maybe they can add some clarity.
Okay, I'll
all right,
try
thanks very much.
I'll try to end this. But
okay, yes.
Whoever the committee would be, they should work in for a month or two, and then they'll know exactly what I'm trying to get across. That it's not fair for these hotel workers to be paid out of the gratuity that they earn.
All right. Thank you very much, caller.
Sandra.
Not a problem. All right. We've got another caller in the line. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the program.
Morning, Sandy.
Morning there. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm on my way to a medical appointment and hearing the conversation.
Yes.
I heard enough to chip in.
You got some feedback though, so I don't know if you have your radio.
I have nothing on. I'm using Bluetooth.
Oh, there you go. That's better. Did you just disconnect the Bluetooth? Oh, maybe it was the other caller that hung up. Maybe it was her.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Yeah. There's a saying that common sense is a flower that does not blossom in many yards.
I need to memorize that one.
And I got to tell you, I'm one of those which I feel. Let me rephrase it. I feel like I'm one of those who is just walking in the wilderness, and either I'm the ignorant one.
So you're walking in a field with no flowers. Then
it's either that or my field is full of blossoms of common sense, because I am so frustrated, and no one seems to even that interview or that piece that you rebroadcasted there.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear the barista correctly when he says that, oh, if you don't tip, you're taking advantage of the worker?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said, right?
Yeah. So tipping is mandatory.
Yeah. So this is where it's a sheep mentality, where people don't stop and think and examine the situation and go, all right, let's apply logic to this. And I'm going to use just because they're there.
And let me just clarify, caller. In your mind, is there a difference between a tip and a gratuity?
No, it's one and the same in my mind.
Yes.
But I do take the point that was made by the previous callers. You know, if you want to start pulling threads apart, then it all comes down to interpretation on the whole thing. But I think at the end of the day, there's a salary, there's a cost of doing business, there's a government tax, and then there's a tip, a gratuity that you give to the person, and that should be on your own volition based on the performance that they provided you or the level of service they provided you, and that you feel, like your generosity makes you feel compelled to say, you know what, hey, this person treated me really well, or I can see they're not necessarily having a good day, or I can see that they're doing really well, and let me just go ahead and do this because I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked to my main point, which is I'm going to use an entity that is probably the world famous for it, and that is Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now he's saying he basically said, and he didn't identify where he'd worked for, and it's irrelevant, but I'm going to use these as an example. Let's just say he was working for them, and he said that because I didn't tip him, or I did not add extra tip, I'm taking advantage of him and his services. And my question then is, what about the multi-billion-dollar corporation who employs him?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If he worked for a Starbucks, for example, right? And I'm not just picking on Starbucks. Pick any other chain, coffee. Mm-hmm. These are multi-billion-dollar corporations,
mm-hmm.
and therefore, with record revenues generated, which and they are one of the star performers on the stock market.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's no question that they are making exorbitant profits. And I am not against profits. I'm a businessman. I'm into making profit. But I never employ my people without paying them a living wage first and foremost. But that's my moral duty. That's how I feel. It's my moral duty to make sure I don't pay them. When they work for me, I didn't pay them minimum wage. I always paid a minimum. I paid a living wage. Okay, I choose no longer to employ staff. I do what I do. My point is that we're not taking advantage if we don't tip. It is the employers, and they've found a way to brainwash the general public and give them, and usually it's that guilt trip. Because again, I've just noticed this now too. I've traveled to the U.S. Probably 7 times in the last 6-7 months, and I'm also now noticing it here, where now because now they bring you the wireless card machine, and then there's a screen and they stand in front of you for additional tips. So you have the mandatory 15% on your dinner or lunch meal. And then they stand there and it comes up with a screen for additional tips. And I sometimes do, and I only do it based on the personality of the server. I only do it based on personality. And if I don't feel like that that I've got anything other than normal, then I don't. I hit no, because there's a 15% already there. So that's what I think they're referring to. The tipflation is there's a 15% plus now you're being pressured to put more. So effectively now they're asking you to pay 20, 25%, what have you. And so my point back though, what I want to get to is that the workers and the powers that be that sets these rules, laws, and regulations need to identify the fact that these companies, whether they're big franchises like Starbucks or not franchise, Starbucks not franchise, but big corporations like Starbucks and the likes, whether it's Cheesecake Factory or whoever, money, then there's no justifiable reason that these people aren't getting living wages other than, oh, we're making our board of directors money and we're on the stock market and we need to show a profit. So let's trickle it down. Let's trickle it down to the average Joe. And that's why our cost of living has gone through the roof. It's because of the corporate greed. Again, I am for making a profit. But then when is enough enough? And that is the question we have to ask. So again, when you apply common sense, don't tell me that I'm taking advantage of you as the barista or the server or the front desk receptionist. You're being taken advantage of by your employer. And so there needs to be a movement to say, listen, guys, 35%, 40, 50% are profit on top of your operating expenses is a fairly decent one. Why aren't your staff being paid accordingly? And that's their problem. But that's just me thinking out loud. I could be the complete lonely voice in the wilderness. I would try to bid you a good day. I'm going
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. We've got 2 other callers on the phone line this morning. Let's have people weigh in on this. First caller up ends in 971. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let me tell you, on Radio Cayman the other day, this is what I heard. That Ritz-Carlton was just paying the people like a certain amount of money as a paycheck, whatever department you work in, but they was taking that paycheck out of the tips and they got no tips. You understand? Their paycheck was coming out of the tips. So the tips was paying these people paycheck, but the company itself was not paying it out of their own accounts. No. I heard this on Radio Cayman, okay? Now, years ago, West Bayers was the force and the main power in the Cayman tourism on that West Bay beach. And I used to hear those girls while I'm working in an office and I'm only making $250. I mean, I'm talking 40 years ago. I'm only making $250 a week or $150 a week. They were making good paychecks every week, and they would say, oh, in 2 weeks' time, we got to get our gratuities. And their gratuities would come in like $1,000, and or they would get it once a month. Let me break it down what's happening. You take all the people tips, you put it in the pile, and when it's time for payday, you pull their paychecks out of the tips. These people are not getting the tips. The tips is not for the company. The tips is not for the staff who is sitting behind the wall that's doing our counter. It is for you who's giving the service. So whenever you're going anywhere, have cash and you tip the person direct. These people is getting away with share murder on a paycheck, on paying these people. They're paying the people, make it very simple, out of their tips. And these people is not getting their tips. They're getting a paycheck out of the tips. And Ritz-Carlton was doing it. And $300 a week. And these people depends on tips. But at the end of the day, Sandra, the tips is not for the tips is not for the company. The tips is for the person who just gave you a service. And yes, you can tip. You don't have to tip $10, you know. If you give a person $2 or $3 and 20 other people come in for the day, and that Say some days you get 10 people giving you $3. Next tomorrow you get 20 giving you $3. At the end of the week, you got some little thing, but it's your tip. Your tip is not paying the paycheck. And this is what's going on around here. I know when West Big Girls was getting $2,000, $1,000 for pay for gratuities in these hotels. And this is another thing that has cut these people down for wanting to go out there and work these hotels. You're cleaning 5-6 rooms a day, right? 7-8 rooms rather, and all 8-9 o'clock in the night you're still there. And when the people leave the gratuities, you're taking them. So how you expect to give encouragement? But these people do know. There's people who work for these people do know that these gratuities in there and these people is taking it. It is clean as thief. So Kenneth Bryan don't have a clue in tourism what he's doing. These people need to get their gratuities needs to be separate from their weekly or their monthly paycheck. Simple as that.
But I mean, does this really have anything to do with the minister? Because I'm assuming that this system has existed long before him.
They all know what's going on. They all know what's going on.
Oh, okay. I mean, this isn't. Wow.
It was pulled down at Ritz-Carlton the other day for the same thing. So they don't need to act like no blind mice. I have nothing against nobody, you know. What I am simply saying, get up and stand up for our people. Gratuity is gratuity. A paycheck is a paycheck. Gratuity. Okay? That is
and let me remind you as well that the Minister of Tourism is not the labor minister. So this is a labor issue. But again, it's a labor issue that, I mean, I think this has always been the case.
But they could take it to labor and help these people rather than having these people be slaves. They're still more than their slavery in many ways, Sandra. Many ways. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. All right, we got 2 more callers on the line. Let me see who's up next. We've got 369 caller. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, Sandra. How are you?
Yes, sir. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I'm trying to figure this all out.
Well, help me to clarify something to me, right? I mean, when you go to a restaurant and you eat, and they always add that 15% gratuity.
Yes.
Is that a mandatory fee?
Well, apparently so, and the workers are expecting you to pay it as well. I mean, I thought tipping was always optional based on, and somebody else said this, based on the quality of service that you actually get. It seems like the workers are expecting it. That's why I wanted us to listen to the perspective, even in America, of what people think. They think that you should be tipping even when it's not on the bill, that it's a mandatory thing that you should be tipping regardless of the level of service you feel you got, really.
For me, tipping should be who really goes above and beyond the call of duty, or somebody who saves you, you know, either time, money, like brings you value. I mean, I had an expensive car repair that one of the garages, I'm not going to call any names, wanted to charge me about $14,000 to fix my car. Right? I took it to another garage person who was very good, and I only had to pay $4,000 for it. And he does such a good job, and he went so above and beyond. I put an extra $1,000 on the bill because for me, he saved me time and he saved me money. He brought value to me. You understand? What business model are these hospitality employers using that they don't just build in the cost of doing business into the price of the good or service that they're selling? Which other business do you know, Sandra? If I go into Office Supply and I want to buy, I don't know, a computer, and the computer is $1,000 or $500, whatnot, are they going to ask me to put a 15% gratuity onto that?
I mean, obviously, it's expected in certain industries, right?
But why should it be? I mean, I can go to a restaurant and get really crappy service and still have to pay 15%. I don't think that's right.
All right, we got another caller. Caller, you're next. You seem to have some thoughts on this. What do you think?
Hi, Sandra. Good morning.
Morning.
In response to getting crappy service from restaurants and having to pay 15%, I've been to Peppers where I got horrible service and I outright flat refused to pay gratuity and I would not pay it. So it's not that it's mandatory, you got to pay it. If you feel that your service was not up to par, you can deny paying the 15%.
And in fact, caller, I just had someone confirm that under law, it is not mandatory. It's just that most people don't know that. And so they pay it. And so you can refuse in the Cayman Islands to pay gratuities, even though it's included on your bill.
Yes, you can. You know, I mean, it's down to the person. If they feel they got great service, then it's not. I don't have an issue paying it, you know. But if it's bad, I'm not going to pay it. And if they insist, then they can call the police because I'm not going to do it. Because at the end of the day, you're paying for a service, you know. But part of the biggest issue that is happening here is a lot of these hotels, especially on the West Bay Road, and I'm not asking, I know. When you work for them, Sandra, during peak season, your gratuity is $360. And when the hotel is slow, it is still $360. Something just not adding up there. It's not right. You know, and the gratuities, you know, to me, whatever that pool is for the month, the staff should be able to see what the income is and how it's divided. I understand they have different levels of how they divide the gratuity within the different hotel sections. When I used to work for the Hyatt Regency going way back, you know, that's years ago when they first opened, I love the system they had because at the end of the day, you would get your gratuity that you work for and the tables that you served. So therefore, you want to be lazy, you don't get anything. And to me, that was more than fair. But at the end of the day, these employers need to stop taking gratuity and paying their staff. Because when I was working on Holiday and Royal Palm for years, our gratuity used to be like $2,000, $2,200 a month. And that's what we depend on to pay our bills because we're a minimum wage, which back then it was what, $5, $4, something like that. So I don't understand now that Cayman has progressed so far and tourism has progressed so far that the minimum wage have dropped from over $2,000 a month to $300. It doesn't make any sense. It don't. And when they were on Radio Cayman discussing it the other day, I called in and I asked them the question, who is making sure gratuities are being paid correctly to the staff?
So Radio Cayman, let me just clarify something. Radio Cayman had a show on gratuities or minimum wage. I don't listen, so I don't know what they were talking about.
A show pertaining minimum wage and to do with labor and different things.
Okay.
And they were talking about gratuities. And I called them and I said, well, who is the person that in charge of making sure that gratuities are being dispersed correctly? Oh, the law is there, but there's nobody to enforce it because we're understaffed. That is government excuse for everything. Everything. That's all you
Boy, they need to set up a whole department. Listen to me, caller. They need to set up a whole department just called enforcement of everything. Enforcement of planning, enforcement of DEH related matters, WORC, immigration. Listen, the enforcement arm, like you said, is lacking.
The penalty fees that they are charged. I just heard Wendy's that got charged $150,000 or something like that for breaking immigration laws. The fees that they are penalizing these people for if they go out in the industries would be more than sufficient to put these groups together to go out and make sure this is being done. I mean, it is hard when you work for a month busting your butt in these hotels. And at the end of the month, all you're getting is $300 gratuity with the little crappy wage that you're getting, minimum wage you're getting on top of that. No, it is not fair. It isn't fair. It is not. And if they say anything, they find an excuse to get rid of you.
Wow.
You know? So it's really bad out there. It's really, really bad. I hear this every single day. I hear the people complaining about this and nothing is being done.
What a mess.
Sandra, before you move on,
yes.
before I come off, that whoever it is that says that it's not mandatory to pay gratuity, could
by
you
law.
provide the link to that or the document to that? Is there some way that we could get, please? Because I'd like to have that.
Okay.
I don't have a problem paying gratuity for good service, but shitty service,
And I agree with you there. I totally agree, because I have refused to pay gratuity. I've even been to some establishment where the workers will say to me, don't pay, don't give any extra tip in this, just give it to us, because if you pay it, it's going to go in the back and we're not going to get it.
Wow.
So don't give any extra.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand why they'd say that if it's not being done. So let me try to find out if somebody's aware of where in the labor law it says that. I know a number of people are listening to the show. Perhaps you can tell us that. But someone says when it comes to hotel, in order to stay, you're accepting that gratuity as part of your cost for the room of services. And they remind us that Dwayne Seymour, aka John, is the Minister for Labor. What a hot mess.
Well, that needs to be rehauled and put together, because I'm telling you, it's okay to have laws implemented, but for no one to enforce them is another story. And that is part of our history here in Cayman. Anyway, Sandy, don't want to hold you up, because I know you got other things you want to talk about.
Well, honey child, this looks like this is quite an important topic. So let's take a quick commercial break. I've got someone saying that maybe CETA can assist. I don't know if they want to come on this morning or not, but perhaps we can delve into this a little bit deeper and get some clarity on exactly how this works. Thank you, callers. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Sandy.
All right. Let's take a quick commercial break, folks. I mean, who knew that this was such a hot topic? Like I said, I don't listen traditionally to the other stations or talk shows, so I don't always know if something comes up there. Obviously, it did. I don't know exactly the full context, but it seems to me that it's a conversation that you guys want to continue, and we give you what you want for the most part.
For 20 years, we've committed to helping the people of the Cayman Islands live longer, healthier, and happier lives. But healthcare and the expectations of patients are rapidly evolving, and so must we. We have made incredible clinical and technological advancements and achieved JCI accreditation, the internationally recognized gold seal of approval for patient safety and quality of care. So it's time for our image to reflect our transformation from a local hospital to a world-class healthcare authority, with a new logo that symbolizes national duty and pride, a statement that reinforces our commitment to our patients every step of the way, with colors as bold as our mission to provide the highest quality healthcare. Dynamic, professional, skilled, committed, caring. This is HSA.
Now, y'all love Popeyes for my fried chicken, but the real ones also love my salty, flaky, covered in butter biscuits. Well, biscuit fans, have I got a treat for you. Introducing new irresistible strawberry biscuits at Popeyes. The perfect balance of salty and sweet thanks to decadent strawberry bits baked right in and mouth-watering creamy icing on top. The perfect dessert for just $2.29, or grab 6 pieces for $12.59.
Strawberry biscuits forever.
Not forever, I'm afraid, honey. Limited time only, and only at Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen on Eastern Avenue.
Ocean Ridge Heights offers an amazing opportunity to own a piece of land in idyllic Cayman Brac, right on the bluff, starting from $80,000. Located in a quiet residential area with high elevation, these lots are ideal for a future home or investment property and are sure to go fast. Cayman Brac offers a laid-back lifestyle, amazing pristine diving, limestone caves, diverse flora, along with amazing wildlife. Inquire about the owner financing options so that you can secure your piece of paradise today. With only a few lots remaining, these are sure to go before you know it. Contact Crichton Properties today on 345-949-5250 or info@crichtonproperties.com.
Recover Personal Injury Attorneys, helping injured people get what they deserve. Did you know that insurance companies have lawyers that represent their interests? Before signing and accepting any settlement, know your rights. Call us today for a free consultation at 924-9999. That's 924-9999. Recover. Your personal injury attorneys are on standby to assist.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. So I guess we're all trying to learn a lot this morning about gratuities and how this works. And I mean, there are things here that I simply did not know. It's a learning process, especially because Cayman is obviously a jurisdiction that has, lots of it is tourism. And so I'm assuming that this impacts a lot of people. So yes, let's have the discussion. We'll get a bit more information on this. So some very, very interesting things coming in. One person says, I can't understand for the life of me why these government ministers avoid coming in CMR to talk to the vast majority of the people who listens to Radio Cayman. Well, apparently some people still do. Having said that, we do have the CETA president who's going to be calling in here shortly to clarify this. So look at that. CMR gets you results. So someone says, bartenders earn over $55,000 a year because of the added gratuity. I heard a bellman makes $100,000 US per year because of gratuity. A bellman in Cayman? Please tell me where he's working so I can go and apply for that job. I want to be a bellman. That's probably at the Ritz or the Kimpton. $100,000 US? Ooh, honey, chill. We could do with that. Because you see them rich people, they got tip you now. By the way, speaking of rich people, while we're waiting on Troy to come on, did you guys know that what's his name there? Usher is on island. I hope he's tipping well. Usher, if you're listening, tip him a little bit extra, honey chow. That one person says, I need that job too. Yes, we could all do it. That little job. $100,000 a year. Hello. I'd be working my little patootie off, giving you extra special care. You got to watch certain ones of these celebrities, though. They might want something that we can't deliver on. Speaking of that, Alejandro is absolutely ridiculous. Alejandro, you are in trouble today, honey child. Alejandro, so speaking of tipflation, what about hoflation? Alejandro, get out of the classroom right now. You can't even be in the back of the classroom. We have to put you outside. You are misbehaving. Well, they adjust their rates based on what's going on as well. So, Sheena says, I'm working for $6.90 per hour in the condos cashier pay. Cashier. Like in a restaurant or coffee shop. Oh my goodness. Alejandro's having a laugh. Darlene says the Ritz bellmen are very well paid. We need that job. I want to work in different industries for a day. I want to do like, a show about, Sandy is a bellman for a day or whatever. Like, I want to see what's involved and like have cameras and stuff, follow and be part of the process so that we can speak from an educated perspective a little bit when we talk about what some people are having to go through. Good morning, caller. Are you trying to call the program? I sent the link to Jay for you to join in. Just click on that link. Okay, then you can turn video off, or you can just call the show 936-2626, whichever you prefer. Yes. Okay, all right, thanks. All right. So this one says, I stopped telling to add more to my card for tip to the server because we find out after they never got it. Need to learn to carry cash to give directly to the server. So people are saying if you pay, they're not paying it to the server. So people don't want you to pay your bill like that. What a hot mess. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandy. It's Troy here.
Hey, Troy. How you doing?
I'm good. Been listening to your show. Want to just clarify a few points on the gratuities and the way that gratuities work and the way that they relate to service charges. As you know, I'm the president of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. I also have two businesses, one of which is a restaurant. So I am
I didn't know that.
also, yes, Vivo Restaurant in West Bay is my business as well.
Oh, that's
And
the
I
one
just really,
down Northwest Point?
yep,
Oh, okay.
little restaurant.
Yeah, I've been there before. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
good. So I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about the terminology in Cayman.
Yes.
So we have various businesses do levy a service charge, and on the tab, it's usually shown as a service charge. So in a restaurant, for example, it may be 15%. Some restaurants may be as much as 18%. So the first thing is that is not a mandatory charge. You can ask for that to be removed from the bill. So that in the customer's mind, it would be seen as a tip. But the difference between a gratuity and a tip is really important because it's administered differently in the law as well. So if you have a 15% gratuity or service charge on your bill, and you decide to round it up to the nearest, I don't know, $5 or something, and make, whether you're paying by cash or paying by a credit card or whatever, if you round that up, the difference between the amount that's on the tab and the amount you pay, that difference is called a tip. And tips are managed differently.
Wait, give me that definition again. Let me make sure I can process that.
Okay, so in the labor law and in the pension law, we talk about gratuities. And gratuities, generally speaking, are amounts of money that are taken by the business, really on behalf of the employee, and it's administered through what is called an approved gratuity scheme. So the reference that when we talk about gratuities, that's really important, right? So that money is taken by the establishment, and it's often pooled and it's redistributed according to an approved gratuity scheme. Now, what's really important about, but any money outside of that is called a tip. And usually that's cashed out on the night. If I have a server at my restaurant that comes and they've gotten an extra couple of dollars on their tab, their ticket that they, the table that they served, they get that cash immediately. That's theirs. The $2 is theirs, but the $10 service charge goes into.
Now, when you say service charge, is that on the bill called gratuities?
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's on the bill it's called a service charge. Okay, so that's where the misunderstanding.
But when it shows up as a gratuity, what is that?
Okay, so my restaurant will have a service charge on it, and that goes into what is called in our language an approved gratuity scheme. There's a legal definition of an approved gratuity scheme, and it has to be approved by the Department of Labor and Pensions. This is not just something we make up. This has to be approved. Okay. So let's just talk this through. So you've got a food bill. The bill is, I don't know, $50. Okay. And then you have a 15% charge on top of that. So you've got a $7.50 charge on top of that. And then you decide to round it up and add another $2.50 because the server was particularly, pleasant tonight. The server gets the $2.50. It goes into their pocket at the end of the night. The $7.50 service charge goes into our approved gratuity scheme. At the end of the pay period, all of the money that came into that approved gratuity scheme gets distributed to the staff according to an approved gratuity scheme that was pre-approved by the Department of Labor and Pensions. Not only does it have to be distributed, it has to be reported. So you have to actually show how much money was taken in through your service charge / gratuity scheme in the course of the month, and exactly how much was paid to each individual employee. Okay, so are we clear on this? This goes on to our pay slip. It's there. They see very transparently what they're being paid in wages, and they're seeing very transparently what they're being paid in gratuities. Now, here's a key point. Further to that, employee withholding, pension withholding is kept on the gratuities, and the employer has to pay the 5% pension on gratuities as well. So it's not like this is just money that just kind of gets slipped. This is money that is taken in, that is distributed, that is reported on, that is pensionable, and pension is paid on that gratuity. That's something that is really important for everyone to understand. This is not, so there's a difference between a tip, which is not taken in by the establishment, is not distributed by the establishment, is not reported by the establishment, and pension is not paid on. So those are two different things in our jurisdiction, according to the labor pensions law.
Okay.
So that's really what I wanted to clarify. Now,
and to clarify also, gratuities by law are not mandatory.
Correct. Absolutely. You have many restaurants that do not put a gratuity on. And and this is and it's not only Cayman that does this, right? I mean, you go to even in Europe, which does not have a tipping culture, you go to the big cities in London and whatnot, it's often added on. And a lot of times people would, it started where sometimes you'd show different examples, nobody can calculate the 15%. So it has become a somewhat of a cultural thing in North America and the Caribbean, right? It has been established for many. The thing is, Sandra, is that one of the things that I feel that Cayman has to offer, and I think it's one of the reasons why the service in our country is often pointed out that our service is much better than some of our Caribbean neighbors. I run a small restaurant, and I can tell you that when you have this pooling of service, how many times do you go to a restaurant in Cayman and one person takes your order, another person helps that person bring your meals, somebody else checks on you, somebody else pours your water. People work in teams, right? It's not like you go to a restaurant in Miami where you have a waitress. She's the only person who interacts with you. When you want something, you're turning around, she's over there. Another waitress walks across your table. You're trying to flag her down. Sorry, that's not my zone, right?
And I'll be honest with you, even, just reflecting on, we were at, like I said, Cheesecake Factory on Friday night, and, somebody brought out the appetizers while the waiter was running to other tables. I mean, it is still a team effort. So the concept with gratuities then is that it is shared amongst the entire team. Now, what about people who are saying that managers are dipping into this and taking this? Are managers traditionally entitled to a take of the gratuities as well?
Okay, so first of all, I can't speak for any specific establishment because the schemes are documented, right? The schemes are documented and they're approved. So if a manager, again, it's your definition of manager, right? You could have a front of house manager who isn't the owner of the business or something like that. I mean, so they are also working the front of house. But the important point is that this is not something that, some HR person or some owner of a business can go, oh, grats were really good this month. I'm not going to give, the full amount. I'm going to take some of it. That's not the way it works. You have to report, just like you have to do for pensions. If you do pension payments, right, you have to say, this is what my employees earn. Here's the 5% for their withholding. Here's the 5% for the employer contribution. So if we have a lack of enforcement, that is another issue. That is not the issue, right? We have the law, we have the legislation, we have the schemes in place. These schemes have to be pre-approved, and these schemes have to be reported. I would find it very difficult to understand what one caller talked about, where the gratuities in low season is exactly the gratuities in high season, because I can tell you in every bit of information that I have seen, including what is in my restaurant, high season gratuities are usually 2 or 3 times the gratuities in low season. But it is one important thing that we must also remember is that in the low season, you are still not allowed to pay your employee below the minimum wage. So if your gratuities do not meet the minimum wage, the company has to make up the difference. So there's not, it's an important clarification. When the term slave wages and whatnot are thrown around, I cringe because I know that I have seen pay slips and I've seen documentation where individuals are earning $30 or $40 an hour because they're good and they work for a good company, and that company, has a thriving business with the volume that is necessary. Most service workers, when you say, I want to hire another employee, whether it's a housekeeper or whether it's a waiter or something, they say, no, we can handle it because they want, they work as a team. They want to have the opportunity to earn that money. So I feel that I'm not saying that there are not some rogue companies out there.
Yes.
I can't speak to that, but I am telling you what I have experienced, what I have been told, what I have been shown is that we have a very clearly defined methodology for taking gratuities / service charges, pooling them, and distributing them fairly to our workers who are actually well paid. And people are usually shocked when they realize how much can be made in the hospitality industry. It's not for everyone, but let me tell you, if you enjoy this sort of work, you can make money. Servers often do not want to be promoted into management because management don't get the tip. It's like, no, I'll stay as a server. Yeah, I've been a server for 10 years, but I'll stay as a server because you know what? I can make $5,000 a month. Okay, so I think that it is important for us to really peel back the onion and understand all of the different aspects of how remuneration and income actually happens. But one important point to remember is that gratuities that are taken in and distributed through approved gratuity schemes, the employee has to pay their pension on that, and the employer has to pay their pension. In the law, it is considered income. So I'll leave
Might
you
I
with that.
interject?
Yes, we have a caller. Hold on one second before you go, Troy. Maybe this caller might have a question for you. Go ahead, caller.
Mr. Troy, good morning. Thank you for
Good
coming
morning.
on.
Good morning.
I'm still not clear. I mean, I'm not a business owner, but could you clarify? I mean, I heard you talk about gratuity scheme. The gratuity money, does it go toward, I'm sitting down and I'm using up AC in your restaurant, somebody has to clean up after me in the restaurant. Is that what the gratuities goes toward?
Okay, so if a business,
in layman's terms, sir, please.
Okay, no, so if a business collects $5,000 in gratuities,
yes,
or service charge in the month, right? So every tab, you'll have a computer system. The computer system says this is your sales, and the computer system says this is your gratuity, right? So if my computer system shows me that my restaurant took in, whatever, $3,000 or $4,000 or whatever it is in gratuities in the month, my report to the Department of Labor and Pensions shows at the top I took in $4,000 in gratuities. And then it shows how much I paid out to each employee. So here's the front of house, the servers, waiters, here's the chef, here's the dishwasher, everybody. And that total at the top needs to total the total at the bottom, which is the total that I paid out. Every penny that comes in as a service charge must be paid out and must be reported how it's paid out. So there's, whether the money goes into the bank account, washes here, or that, the point is that every penny that comes in must be paid out to the employees in a scheme that is pre-approved and must be reported on every pay period. Every pay period, not once a year, every pay period. So it's highly regulated. Highly regulated.
No, sorry, Mr. Troy. I don't think I was clear in what. Okay, so I sit down at a meal. If I call pick up food, I place an order and I come to pick up food, right? And the price of that meal is, I don't know, let's say $50. Right? Let's say it's for me and somebody else. I'm picking it up. I pay $50 for that meal. I pay no gratuity, right? Right. As opposed to where I come and I sit down in your restaurant. I get that same meal. The meal is $50, but on top of that bill is a 15% gratuity. 15% is what? 10%. That's what? $10, around $10. Right? Yeah. What I'm asking for is that $10 extra on my bill, what am I paying for? Am I paying for the AC and the lights that I'm using up? Am I paying for somebody to clean up after myself? What is the 10%? What is that 15% gratuity for?
Okay, so in our culture of a service charge or a gratuity, if you had to directly link that to something, it would be the service provided by the employees, not just the server that's taking your order or is bringing you your plate, but the support staff behind that server, the buses, the assistant servers, the chef in the kitchen, the sous chef, the dishwasher. They all share in that, and every penny of it goes to them. So that's exactly right. It's a non-mandatory but specified amount that we're asking you to pay that is going towards the provision of service. And this is not unique to Cayman at all. Not at all, right? This is quite universal. It's long-standing, right? And it leads to very good service by very competent teams. This is why, Sandra, people will leave North America with a university degree and come to Cayman and be a server because they are earning thousands of dollars a month. Okay? So this is why we have the quality of service that we have in Cayman. And we have exceptional service in the Cayman Islands.
Sorry, I'd like to interject once more because I don't want to go off track of my point. Well, if that is the case, if that is the purpose of the gratuity, why isn't that baked into the price of the meal?
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me just add one more person. They might have a question for Troy, so I want to just join the call 1 second. All right, folks. So great opportunity to ask some questions here if you have any. But
I have a question for the speaker president.
One second. Caller, hold on. You're coming in hot and heavy, but let's have him answer the previous question first. Troy, the question then that caller's asking is, why not incorporate that into the price of the food itself?
Okay, so if we work in an industry, okay, that has a set way of working, that is long-standing, that is universal, to change that is monumental. Just think of you as a user, right? You come and you see a headline price. It's like seeing an airline ticket, right? An airline ticket is $100, but you got to pay $25 if you want to carry your luggage, right? So the reality, we operate in a consumer market environment. So obviously the headline price of anything is going to matter. So why would my small business, who has had this arrangement for years, say, I'm going to raise my prices 15% and I'm going to do away with the gratuity? I mean, it would not make business sense for me to do that.
Not only that, but in the name of transparency. I mean, CUC says this all the time. In their line of business, they are more transparent than a lot of other like utility companies, right? So, Flow and Logic and all these people, they're charging you that stuff. They just don't break it down in the way that CUC does. CUC breaks it down. So you see what the fuel charge is, you see what your kilowatt usage is, you see all of these elements. It's completely transparent. I can imagine if you tried to incorporate it into the food price, all of a sudden people would be like, oh my God, why is a plate of spaghetti $25 now when it used to be $10 or whatever? They'd be cussing because they're not understanding. So I think really it's to keep things aligned in a way that makes sense. So the price of the food is for the price of the food.
It can still be removed. It can still be removed from the bill. If you do not get the service that you think that you
exactly
warrants that, you can have it removed from the bill. So it's still and
it's not mandatory. Yeah.
Exactly.
But then what's the purpose of a tip afterwards?
But the tip is not. No one asks for a tip.
I understand that, sir, but I'm trying to.
Because some people want to go. Some people want to go above and beyond. Yeah. Let me ask you another question, Troy, to explain this one, because we did get an example, and I'm going to throw this up on the screen for the benefit of our viewers. So someone said, they're still a little bit confused about where the money goes. So now that you've explained that there is this, gratuity scheme that has to be registered.
Approved gratuity. Yeah, it's approved gratuity.
Yes, that's fantastic. I mean, I didn't really know that. So this person is asking, so the 15% on the bill goes to everyone. If they do an extra percent then for additional tip, who does that go to? Is that only going to go to the person serving you?
Okay, so it depends on the establishment. Okay, so so very typically, that tip is not a lot of money, right? So the culture in the establishment might be that the server of that table takes that. I also know some establishments will pool tips, and the shift shares the tips. Do you understand what I mean? So in other words, the extra $2, $3 here kind of goes in. They're cashing out at the end of the night. We got $200, and there were 4 people, working that night it's usually to the front of house, right? It's to the servers and whatnot. And they might agree between them that they're going to pool tips, right? I have a private charter business, and when we run charters and an amount of money is given by the guests to the crew, we have 2 crew on our boats. That money is split between the 2. So that's the way we do things. But that's not an approved gratuity scheme, right? That's a tip. So different businesses.
So that's not subject to pension payments and
not at all. Exactly. That I don't even see that. I don't even know how much it is, in terms of running the business, right? So that's what I'm saying is that the term gratuity and tip is used interchangeably, but they are 2 different things, not only from a business standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint. They're 2 different things.
So to be clear, my final thing before I go. So to be clear, if I go to a restaurant and I get subpar service, I can ask for that to be removed, and they have to remove that gratuity charge?
Absolutely.
Thank you for clarifying.
The only thing that they can charge you is actually what is on the menu. And usually most menus will say a 10% or a 15% gratuity will be added, but absolutely, that is not a mandatory payment. You can ask to have that removed from your bill.
And here's another point, caller, 1 second before you go. Jay Ahart makes a fair point. He says gratuities only go to employees, not for electricity or rent. That 15% goes straight to staff only. So if you incorporate it into the food, you'd see where it'd be very, very difficult to then figure that out, right? Because the cost of goods, and I'm glad we're having this discussion because we've talked about businesses and stuff before. When you figure out how to price an item, included in that is your cost of goods and cost of operating your business. So everything from your rent to your utilities to whatever else is your cost of doing business. That is included in the price of your food. To put that together with the price of gratuities, you wouldn't be able to split it in the way that you really have to legally. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we said that we're going to roll back decades of the way that this is done and is done throughout our jurisdiction or hemisphere, we're going to change this. This would have an unbelievable effect on businesses that have this model. We would lose employees because you've got schemes that are set up. The kitchen is paid at this wage, the front of house is paid at this wage, the waiters and servers, they get, this percentage of the gratuity. Schemes are devised for, in some cases, in my business, maybe 8 or 9 people versus, 4 or 5 or 600 people in a large hotel. So you imagine changing that and saying, oh, we're not going to do it this way anymore. Now gratuities are going to go into prices.
So different people at different levels get paid different
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, say that bit again. Different people at different levels get paid.
No, I was just asking for him to clarify because I was saying, so for example, the server versus the dishwasher versus
exactly.
So I would assume the chef would have been paid the same because if I ordered the meal out, I'm assuming that some of that money goes to the chef anyway, so I wouldn't even include the chef in that. But
the thing is, again, it's not in every business, but in our business, for example, what we call the back of house, the kitchen, the chef, they also get a small amount because again, it's this whole team, right? So some businesses may, and here's another important point: if you want to change the scheme, the employees have to agree to the change. So a business can't just suddenly decide, well, oh, we're going to do this change. So this money belongs to the employees. They agree how it's going to be distributed. It's documented. Right? Department of Labor and Pensions approves that, and you have to report against that to the penny every pay period, and it's pensionable, right? So this is not like just this slush fund over here that the company.
All right, hold on 1 second, Troy. We have another person we're going to just put on hold. What we do is we'll put you on hold and then join. So I think we've got 4 people on at the moment. So sorry, Troy, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that this is not just some money that is just the business does with it what it wants to do with it. This is a scheme that's set up. Employees agree to it. It's approved. It's reported on, and we pay pension on.
Okay. All right. Troy, can we beg you to stay on the line and just answer a few more questions for us?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. So again, we've got Troy Leacock on the line, folks. He's the president of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. So one person says, Sandy, can you ask Troy, can a restaurant refuse to serve a customer who refuses to pay gratuity? Well, if it's not mandatory, I wouldn't think so.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. What about gratuities and takeout orders? We see that happening sometimes. Is that?
Well, I have to say that I've encountered that in one establishment, and even somebody being in the industry was like, wow, So yeah, it's an individual business, right? I guess that 5% or whatever they're charging on takeout that goes into their approved gratuity scheme, and it's maybe what the previous caller said. The back of house is still cooking the meal, the front of house is taking the order. They're whatever, they're greeting you, whatever. So maybe in that model, they feel that they're warranted having a 5% or whatever in takeout. It's also like some restaurants have 18%. Some might have, hotels in particular might have 20%. So again, the law and the industry doesn't dictate the amount. You could have a restaurant that opt for a 10% service charge. It doesn't have to be 15%. But the point is that if we are taking it in, then it has to be distributed to the employees. It is not the restaurant's money to do with what it wants to do with. It is money that's taken in on behalf of the employees and must be distributed according to a pre-approved scheme.
All right. Here's some people are still confused. I'm glad Troy is taking the time to explain this. So Bink says that grants go towards chefs, hostesses, dishwasher, cleaners, and servers. Salvin says, why not call gratuity at the collection point rather than a service charge? Now we're collecting service charge, convert it to gratuity. So the name of what is collected changed, but the collection doesn't. Make it easier rather than confusing the whole thing. Collect gratuities and pay out gratuities.
Well, okay, let's just think about this for a second, right? Look at how confused we all are here talking about gratuity, right? So, the label on the ticket probably legally doesn't matter whether you have gratuity. I mean, I think I've seen some menus that say a 10% service charge, another will say a 15% gratuity. I think that, what's important is that you understand in the words, right? Service charge, gratuity effectively means the same thing. Tip is different. And that's really the distinction.
Yes.
So
and it's important that you understand them in the context of Cayman as well.
Exactly. In the U.S., the words gratuity really aren't really thrown around, right?
Yeah.
Service charge, people understand that. I mean, you go into some restaurants that have, I haven't seen any in Cayman, maybe I don't do that enough, but, I've been into restaurants, and restaurants in Europe, by the way, there's a bread charge, right? They bring bread to your table. You haven't asked for the bread. They bring the bread to the table, and you got a tab, and it shows bread charge, right? I didn't ask for bread, right? So, but that's very much a European thing. So they charge you for the bread, all right? So again, you must understand that, there are different cultural, economic, business models, regulation models, and we must not just have a knee-jerk reaction to saying this is how it should be, because the important thing is that Cayman has an excellent scheme, right? Maybe there's a bit of enforcement here and there that, needs tightened up. I'm not saying there are not some road operators, but generally speaking, Cayman has an exceptional remuneration schemes for service industry, and that's why we attract the very best in the world to come and offer service in Cayman. What I want to do is attract the very best Caymanians into the service industry. That's what I want. And this is the kind of information that we need to make sure get out to our young people, that they understand the kinds of careers that they can develop in the hospitality and accommodation industry in Cayman, and they can make very good money. It's not for everybody. You have to work Sundays, sometimes you have to work public holidays, you have to work odd hours. When everybody else is relaxing, you're working because they're relaxing at your establishment, right? So it's not for everyone. But if you are the kind of person that would like this, good money can be made here.
All right, we had another caller in the line who had a question for you, caller. Ending in I think 1110. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes,
Hi.
morning,
Quick
Sandra.
thing.
Hold on. I think it was the other one that had the question. Go ahead. All right, and whoever has their radio on, please turn that off for me.
My question to Mr. Lee, to Troy, is that if grants were never mandatory, why they wait so long to actually come out and publicly speak it, right? Two, you have a restaurant that charges you, if you look at their receipt, charge you grants and service charge. And how is PISA or the pension board, because pension board always messing up, is so sure that the staff is getting the grants and it's not going elsewhere. They can't put their head on the chopping block for the grants if they don't know where they're going. You can send a report that it's going somewhere when it's not. It has happened before.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not saying that somebody couldn't make a mistake or intentionally misreport. Okay, that's possible with anything. That's possible with immigration laws. That's possible with pension. You could underpay your pension. You know, you could say that you have health insurance for your employees and you don't. But everything is auditable, right? Everything. You know, most restaurants run on a point of sale system.
Right, and this is where enforcement comes in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so you know, and the thing is, Sandra. Okay, please listen to me really carefully on this. Okay, no one is going to work in a job in which they feel they are being underpaid. They will go to another establishment. People move between restaurants and all the time because we are always looking for good staff. The food and beverage service, the restaurant industry in Cayman is always looking for talented people, right? And it's much easier to take somebody from another restaurant than to get a work permit and bring them in and all of that sort of stuff, right? So people in the restaurant industry will move around all the time. They're always looking for that next better opportunity. You know, I was an assistant cook in the kitchen, and now I can be a chef over here, or I was an assistant server. I was a server in the smaller restaurant. Now I can move up to this more profitable restaurant. So we have to pay market rate in order for the employees. This idea that there's this slave labor is absolutely. I mean, it's if you're in the industry, it's laughable. Okay, it's laughable because we have to pay the money to get the quality of staff that we need. And if you go out in Cayman, and if you travel, that the service that we provide in Cayman, in our hospitality and accommodation industry, is second to none. And I mean any country, whether it's Canada, United States, we have the best service, I think, in the world in Cayman. All right. And the only reason we get that is because we employ the best people. And the only way that you are going to employ and keep the best people is to pay them what they feel that they deserve. It's as simple as that.
Not cutting Mr. Troy off, but that's his opinion because I've traveled the world and I've had top of the line service. I've had a server come every 1 minute, every 2 minutes to make sure that your service, the service we get here now, a lot of us complaining about it because the service doesn't smile, they're not polite, they're not professional. If they're not showing
well, I can tell you one thing, it's certainly all relative, caller, because recently I was telling people I traveled to Jamaica on a family trip. A cousin was getting married. And I thought the restaurants that we went to, a lot of them, their service was lacking. I'm like, I get better service in Cayman any day than what I was experiencing there. So I guess it's just all a matter of, we can all say.
You have to have a passion.
Yeah, and that's across the board, no matter where you are. Yeah.
Exactly. And you got people going in jobs just to say they're in a job to get a
Yep.
paycheck and
Yeah.
expect you to give them grants and give them tips. And if you
Regardless
don't,
of
then
the
well
level of
paid,
service.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But those are my
Thank you so much,
questions, and
caller.
I'm
Appreciate it. So let me just, again, I'm not sure that this other listener's point was clarified. So she said, if like you have a gratuities line, then you have one for additional tips. She wants to know if that additional tip line is going directly to her server, or is that also then going to go in the pool of gratuities? It's on a separate line on the receipt.
No. So if the receipt shows a 15% service charge, or I mean, it could even possibly be worded gratuity, but if the calculation is in the bill, then that is administered according to the approved gratuity scheme. If there's another line that says tip, and I think a lot of receipts will have that, and you put $2 on that, then that goes into either directly to that server. I mean, in our case, at the end of the night, the server will say, well, I have $17 extra, and they'll just cash that out. If the culture in the restaurant is that I take my 17 and you take your 20 and she takes her 11, and we're going to pull it all together, split it, between the three of us, but it's a tip. The restaurant is not involved in it. It doesn't calculate it. It doesn't monitor it. It doesn't distribute it. It's something that goes right to the staff, basically, Okay.
So the staff determines how that's done, or management determines how that's done?
Usually, I mean, I guess, again, different establishments, right? Usually the staff will agree between them. I mean, there's a culture, in the business, that this is how we do this. I think more often than not, it's a small amount, and it's, in many cases, it's probably taken by the main server. But again, like I said, if the main server says, boy, dishwasher, you guys really cracked it tonight, or the kitchen was really busy, here you go, $10 each or whatever from my tips or whatever. These people work, they work together for long hours, right? Relying and supporting and helping each other. So again, different businesses have different cultures, right? So, but we must not sit outside the industry and presuppose how it works. It's, that we cannot do that. We have to understand how it works.
All right. One more caller is on the line, I believe. Caller, you have a question or comment? Hello, caller. Oh, boy, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still
okay.
here.
I'm not sure if they got disconnected, but 936 Bubba's telephone number. So again, folks, Troy, we really appreciate you coming on the program to answer the questions that have been coming in hot and heavy for you. Some of people I think are confused. I think this has certainly, for me, clarified a couple points. Damien says it depends on the business if it's pooled or separated to the server. So again, hopefully that answers that person's. It's so shocking that we all eat out and we all utilize these services, but so few of us actually know how any of this works. It just, we had no clue. So if nothing else that has come out of this, at least we'll have some degree of clarity. Now, in terms of the minimum wage, obviously this is a discussion that's on the table. Someone made the point, let me just read this comment here, that an important point to input here of the $6 minimum wage, the companies only pay $4.50, and the company can use gratuities to pay the other $1.50. So the question is, are or should gratuities be a part of the minimum wage?
Okay, so the way that the law is currently drafted is that if you receive gratuities under an approved gratuity scheme, so let's just make sure we understand that, right? So if you receive gratuities under an approved gratuity scheme, the minimum wage that you are paid can be the lesser amount. So it can be $4.50. So basically, what it says is that the minimum wage is $6 unless you are paid gratuities as part of an approved gratuity scheme, in which case your minimum wage is $4.50. But in no event, in no pay period, shall you be paid less than $6. So if your gratuity averages $1 an hour in that pay period, you get $4.50 and you get $1. The company has to pay you the additional 50 cents. So you can still not receive less than the minimum wage. If you go on vacation, if you're sick, maternity leave, you are paid at $6 an hour. So the company is still has to make sure you're not paid less than the minimum wage. But if the company has an approved gratuity scheme and your gratuities in any pay period is more than takes you above the $6, then the wage can be $4.50. So it doesn't have to be $4.50. It could be $5. It could be $5.50. But it just allows that establishment to pay you less than the legal minimum wage of $6.
Yes.
But you have to be registered in an approved gratuities scheme. Okay, that's the important point. That's unlike in the United States, where if you're a server, I think the federal minimum wage for servers is something like $2. You know, I mean, I'm just kind of pulling this a little bit off the top of my head, but what I'm saying is that in the United States, which doesn't have the kind of regulated schemes that we're talking about in Cayman, if you're a server, you don't have to be paid the $12 or whatever, which is the minimum wage. You can be paid.
So let me tell you what it is, because this is so interesting. I had no idea. According to the Department of what is the hourly wage for tip workers, federal law sets the minimum basic wage, cash wage, at $2.13 per hour, but many states mandate a higher amount. So thank God for that, because that's something.
But the point is, right, is that every jurisdiction, whether it's federal or whether it's states, recognizes that there's going to be an amount of income that comes in through tips, gratuities, whatever. That's universal. Bermuda just this year implemented a minimum wage. The minimum wage, I think, is 15 Bermuda dollars, which more or less the same in the US, I think. But if you are paid gratuities, the entire amount, not just the $1.50 as it is in Cayman right now, the entire amount can be paid from gratuities. So this is not unique to Cayman. If anything, Cayman has the most heavily structured, clearly structured, and heavily regulated and enforced, and that's why we attract good people in our service industry.
Yes. Well, I know what they're dying to come here. I mean, we have more Canadian workers in the service industry than anywhere in the world, and I mean, people from all over the world. Just over the weekend, Troy, we're going to start to wrap this up a little bit, but I saw a comment that gave me pause, or a person's like, "Oh, I took a trip to Austria, and Cayman is just we're horrible here. We have so much to do." And I had to pause and said to myself, it's amazing when people get a little bit of exposure to something else. They get to travel, which is the importance of traveling. Really, we all of a sudden want to put down our own country about how horrible things are, but everything is relative. Every country in the world has issues. And most of the time when you go on vacation and holiday somewhere else, you don't get to see the issues. You get to see the glam and the nice hotels, and the person who's showing you around is showing you the best that Austria has to offer. They're not taking you to the slums of Austria, if they have slums. I don't know anything about Austria, but they're not taking you to those places. You don't get to see poverty. You don't get to see all these other issues that they're struggling with. Living here, you see the full reality of a country, especially the country of this size. So I always try to take my hats off to, yes, we're not perfect and we have a lot of work to do. We don't want to go down, this tumbling road of things never getting any better and any improvement, but we're still one of the best places in the world. And the reason why your Austrian boyfriend has come to the Cayman Islands, there's a legitimate reason for that.
Yes, absolutely. Many people see.
You know what I'm saying? It's normally the money. Yeah, it's normally the money and opportunities that are here. So don't be too quick to knock this little rock when so many people are dying to come here. And the crazy part is not only are they dying to come here, but they're able to, set themselves up in businesses and industries and do all this stuff that Caymanians just sit back and complain and can't hustle and do for themselves.
It is important for us, industry leaders, government leaders, community leaders. It is important for us to make sure that we're educating and motivating all of our Caymanians, especially young Caymanians, to take advantage of the opportunities that others come here and take advantage of, right? But, that has to start from really uplifting each other, not tearing each other down, and making sure that we are, as you say, looking for the positives with what we have here and making sure that we are giving the correct information. So many people feel that, the tourism industry, the hospitality industry or whatever, it's underpaid and all that. And nothing could be further from the truth. Mm-hmm. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got to make sure that information gets out there so that people really understand the opportunities and say, hey, yeah, I don't want to work in a bank wearing a tie. I would love to work on a front desk and greet guests, or I want to work on a boat.
I want to be that bellman that's making $100,000 a year.
Exactly. Now it's seasonal, right? So
yes.
If you're not the kind of person that can earn 3 times more in March and April, but then, struggling, in October,
yes.
If you can't manage your
finances,
you can't manage your finances, you can't manage your lifestyle or whatever, then maybe it's not you. It is a seasonal business. It's seasonal, it's long hours, it's weekends, it's public holidays, so it's not for everybody.
Yes.
But for those who love it and develop a career in it, they make very good money.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. And you can travel the world. There are many benefits you get from working in the hospitality industry. You pay fractions at the hotel rate when you travel within. If you work for a hotel chain, you can travel and pay a fraction of what the rack rate is. I mean, there's huge benefits.
Yes.
We even give benefits amongst ourselves in the industry.
Right.
Industry discounts and things like that. There's a tremendous opportunity. I don't think that there's any industry. Well, education is pretty important, but but I don't think that there's any industry that is more fun to be in, more vibrant, that you meet more people, more interesting people than our tourism industry. And that, and I'm sorry, I just simply will not let anyone knock it down and say, we're not paying fairly or whatever, because nothing could be further from the truth.
And of course, if you work for a company that isn't paying, you need to report them to DLP. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and you know what you're going to do? You're going to go to another company, because believe you me, everybody's looking. Everybody is looking. We have thousands of people in this industry, and any good business in Cayman is always looking, especially Caymanian, you're looking for good Caymanian. So believe you me, if you're working and you feel like you're being, underpaid or mismanaged or whatever, there are going to be other opportunities out there for you, because we work in a market economy, and we're subject to market forces.
All right. Well, Troy Leacock, president of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. We had a comment here from one of our listeners, and let me just pull up his name here. His name is, I think it was Alberto. Sorry. Alberto says, please give my gratitude to Mr. Troy. He has cleared up a lot of things. He's cleared a lot of things up and elevated my understanding. Now I will explain to my friends and family when they visit, some of their criticism is wrong. So another person who has worked HR in the industry says, I'm so grateful that Troy is on air. Thank you so much.
Well, that makes me feel that. Thanks for those comments.
I appreciate it.
Listeners, I appreciate it, because sometimes you feel beaten down, so I really do.
Yeah, no, it takes time to educate people. And normally you have to say it more than once. Maybe what CETA should do in conjunction with some of the hotels and some of the other properties is start to put together some PSAs out there so that they can get circulated and people can, have an idea of exactly how all of this works. I think that would be awesome.
We education and information and transparency and all that is definitely part of what we have to do. There's no question. And I'm realizing that more now. As I listen to, to shows and, like yours this morning, I'm realizing, wow, okay, we're in the industry, right? So we assume, well, of course, everybody knows that, you make good money here. Well, who doesn't? But then you realize that there are just a lot of misconceptions and misinformation out there, and we've got to address that. So, yes. So
thank you
for the opportunity.
I appreciate it.
All right,
my dear. Have a good one.
Okay, then.
All right, we do have another call. And speaking of PSAs, there's an important one that I want to play very, very quickly in case you start to run out of time, because I've got an 11 o'clock. I want to be at that big announcement this morning. But listen to this quick PSA from the Health Ministry. Really important information, folks. Make sure that you share this.
The STEPS 2023 National Health Survey has been extended to September 3rd to maximise participation and give us the best data possible. If you've been chosen to participate, please say yes to Step 3. For more information, contact the STEPS team on 936 4969 or email mhwsteps@gov.ky.
All right, folks, and we're going to be having them come on the program, and you're going to learn some more about STEPS. But in case you missed that show, really, STEPS is about the health ministry trying to collect health-related information and data. They're going around to different homes, door to door, collecting this information so they can make better decisions. The ministry needs to be able to prioritize, where we need certain services or whatever. And the only way they can do that is if they have an accurate idea of the health and pulse of our health as a nation. Caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra. Minister Brian here.
Good morning, Minister Brian. Can I twist your thumb to get the goods before 11 o'clock? I'm just kidding. I'm just playing with you. But
sounds a couple more minutes left, so you might as well hold up. But I'm certain that you'll be the first one to press the send button to let everybody know exactly.
Oh yes, definitely. We will be on it.
With that being said, I want to say this morning's show was an amazing show because it did bring a much needed dialogue to the topic of minimum wage and gratuities, as the Minimum Wage Committee is currently doing the review to give to us as a cabinet and as a government to approve or disapprove. So the public's input into this is going to be essential to the Minimum Wage Committee to give us the recommendations. Now, you got to remember now that even though we're lawmakers, we're legislators, we depend heavily on the technocrats to analyze the current labor market, to give us the best advice on what is the best steps moving forward, what's the best price, whether gratuity should be involved or shouldn't be involved, and if they are involved, what percentage, and so forth. So we're going to be taking the guidance of the Minimum Wage Committee. So they are doing public feedback right now. So the country having a discussion like this morning, hopefully the Minimum Wage Committee members were listening, so you can hear feedback. And I know that they're going to be doing some town hall meetings starting next month. And I encourage everybody, go out to those meetings so they can hear from you. I know a lot of the organizations like CETA, Chamber has already given a lot of input into what they will use in that report, which ultimately comes to a conclusion to us to accept or not. And we want to make sure that the average labor worker gets their viewpoints in as where they see the amount should be and why it should be that way and how it should be constructed. So thank you so much for today. I do think the Minimum Wage Committee having an online poll, which ends on the 31st of July, which is different from the district meetings. And it would be great for people who may not be going to these meetings to put their input in there. And you could be a voter, non-voter, Caymanian, non-Caymanian, as long as you're not just a visitor. As long as you're a resident in the Cayman Islands, you can participate in that online Survey Monkey poll. It gives them content to consider when they make their recommendations to government. Because remember now, we're not the technocrats. We're going to be trusting this committee to give us the best recommendations so we can implement, hopefully, before the end of this year. So thank you again, Sandra. The discussion today was perfect and needed and timely, as this report is being developed for us to be. I think they're expected to have it finished around the end of October, if my memory serves me well. Bearing in mind, I'm not the Minister for Labor, but minimum wage does affect heavily the tourism industry, so I have to monitor it closely, though I'm not the minister responsible for it. So again, thank you so much.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you too. All right, folks. We hit some really good points today. Again, this is a perfect example of the collaboration that happens with industry expertise, listening to the program, saying, hey, we'll call in right now, give you guys information real time where it makes the most impact. They're able to answer your questions while it's on our mind. So big shout out to our caller from the beautiful district of West Bay who kicked off this conversation. This was not even planned or on the agenda today, but look at that. We've all learned an amazing amount of information. Thanks, Catherine. She shared the Survey Monkey link there in the chat. Please go ahead and click on that. So Omar has gone back to the landlord issue. Yes, Omar, we're hoping by next week we can have the housing committee, what do they call themselves again? The housing, hold on. Tell you the proper name, housing task force, give us something that might help in relation to that, Omar. So hopefully they have also been listening. Douglas says, thank you to Minister Brian. Tamika, says thank you to Mr. Brian. So yes, obviously we're trying to keep a pulse on the community here. on what you guys are saying and what is happening. And we want to ensure that we're getting accurate information out there. Your concerns and issues are being addressed, and, you know, as much as we can get resolution, the better. Having said that, I want to give a big shout out. Someone informed me yesterday. They said, Miss Sandy, after your show on Thursday, I had some amazing results. They said, Miss Sandy, look here, not saying nothing on the show. Well, we're going to mention it a little bit. But my landlord fixed something that they've not fixed for quite some time. And imagine if that was not because that would not have happened because of your show. And they said, please, thank you, and continue doing what you're doing. So, you know, yeah, people are paying attention. People are afraid, but in a good way. Because, you know, I tell people, you have zero things. They said, oh, you scared a lot of them landlords out there. I hope so. Because if you were listening to the program and you're one of these slumlords, you need to stop it, because we will start naming and shaming you and posting up pictures of the like I said, caskets in the corner that you're trying to rent people. We're not vampires. You know, people need to have some human decency. And we all work so incredibly hard, whether you're paying a mortgage or paying rent, that when you go home and you put your little head down, you want to be able to, at the very minimum, be comfortable in your space. It doesn't have to be a mansion, honey, to make you comfortable. But broken down appliances, no proper access to showers and waters and all this kind of stuff, living with roaches trying to squeeze you out of your bed, that kind of thing is just unacceptable and disgusting and unacceptable. Some people got snakes living in the house, landlords refusing to call in the exterminator. Y'all gonna be called out. Stop the nonsense now. We can't be having this kind of behavior in our beautiful Cayman Islands. I'm just saying. Cameron says Sandy's hammering one nail at a time. Sandy's a real champion round. Yeah. Ooh, honey child. The nail that I really want to hammer this morning, but we didn't get to, but we'll be hammering that with a big sledgehammer tomorrow, is Cydonie Mothersill. That girl is still going places, despite the fact that everybody is questioning how and why. Ooh, we'll put in the agenda first thing tomorrow. Health City's on sabbatical until, what month are we in? July, August, so back in September. So we're quickly approaching the birthday month of August. So y'all know what that means. It's party time. Honey child, make sure y'all tune in, because I got some great prizes for you all. You're going to be so tickled pink. All right. So I think that's pretty much all she wrote. I do want to get to the press conference in person today. And guess what? Today's the day I go pick up my birthday present. Woohoo! Okay, so I'm going to do that as well. Oh, yeah. Sandy treating herself good this year. It is what it is. So listen, y'all have a fantastic rest of day. We'll catch y'all tomorrow morning, 7:30, bright and early. Have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.